Attention all departments. Attention all departments. The joint operation to capture is officially underway. Be cautious not to alert the targets. All eyes are focused. Report any developments immediately. Received. Amidst the biting cold wind, a plainclothes officer responded to the superior's command through a miniature earpiece. Dressed as an ordinary street vendor, he stood in front of a Jianbing Guozi stall. Before long, a young girl approached the stall. "Excuse me, how much for one Jianbing Guozi?" The undercover officer hesitated. Instinctively lowering his voice, he turned to the earpiece and inquired, how much is this Jianbing Guozi?" The young girl, puzzled, thought he was addressing her. "Are you the boss, or am I? Why are you asking me for the price?" At that moment, the voice of his superior crackled through the earpiece. "Are you plainclothes, or am I? Why are you asking me for the price? Decide for yourselves." It was clear that the other undercover officers stationed at various stalls were not easing his burden. The Jianbing Guozi vendor glanced at the young girl and hesitantly replied, "Then you can decide how much. 5 yuan? All right." The young girl looked bewildered, sensing that even if she had suggested 1 yuan, he would have agreed. The vendor's subsequent actions left her even more confused. He clumsily opened a jar, scooping out a ladle of semi-solid batter and awkwardly pouring it onto the griddle. Clearly struggling with the proportions, he ladled out 5 or 6 scoops before barely achieving a single serving. However, due to his slow pace, by the time he scooped the second ladle, the first was already cooked, and by the 6th, it had burnt. An odd charred smell wafted through the air, causing the young girl to wrinkle her nose. In a flurry, the vendor hurriedly tried to remove the blackened dough, accidentally burning himself in the process. The young girl's brow furrowed deeper. Could this vendor truly survive in the Jianbing Guozi business? "Master, is this your first day on the job?" "No, I've been in this line for 5 or 6 years. Despite his panic, the plainclothes officer did not forget the persona assigned to him by his superior. Claiming to have 5 or 6 years of experience, he inadvertently tossed a freshly cooked sausage into the trash due to his distraction, while the plastic wrapper ended up on the open pancake. Perhaps noticing the young girl's scrutinizing gaze, he looked down, panicking again as he tried to grab it, only to burn himself once more. Do you want to add an egg?" To alleviate the previous awkwardness, the vendor pretended nothing had happened and posed question. "Sure, add it." The young girl, unsure why, found herself stuttering as she spoke. This time, the vendor focused intently, holding his breath. Finally, he cracked a perfect egg. The moment he discarded the shell, both he and the young girl sighed with relief. At last, one step had been executed flawlessly. Suddenly, she noticed him tossing in 2 slices of vegetables. He immediately attempted to roll up the Jianbing Guozi. The girl quickly interjected, "Wait, is that it? You haven't added the sauce, and the egg isn't cooked." The vendor immediately became flustered again. Should I add it? Let me do it now." Had the girl not already scanned to pay, she would have turned away long ago. In the end, she received a sticky, mishandled Jianbing Guozi. She hesitated, wanting to say something, but holding back. "You aren't one of those undercover cops that often appear in dramas, are you? You know, the ones who pretend to be vendors to monitor suspects?" Upon hearing this, the vendor dropped his spatula in shock, waving his hands frantically. "Don't say that. No, that's not true. Don't spread rumors. It's illegal. If you keep saying that, it'll call the police." In the frigid winter air, the vendor was drenched in sweat. The girl looked at him suspiciously and mumbled, "So strange." Once she walked away, the earpiece crackled with the sound of a frustrated superior. "What's going on with you all? Were you not supposed to return and watch the street vendor training videos? How could you all expose yourselves the moment you start? If ordinary people are suspicious of you, the suspect will definitely be on high alert. You all come back immediately. Pack up. Operation suspended." Hearing the furious tone of his superior, it was clear that the other undercover colleagues at their food stalls had also failed miserably. 10 minutes later, 3 food carts convened at the intersection. The vendors were the 3 officers sent to set up stalls for this operation. One sold Jianbing Guozi, another fried stinky tofu, and the last grilled skewers. A diverse array, yet all had collapsed. Upon meeting, the 3 officers could not help but lament. "Wow, it looks so simple in the video, but it's incredibly difficult in practice. Yeah, I thought I wouldn't expose myself, so why was I suspected of being undercover? It must be the ingredients. My technique is correct." Suddenly, they noticed the count was off. "Why are there only 3 of us? Where's Xiaolon? Why hasn't he returned? Could it be he hasn't arrived yet?" Meanwhile, a tricycle leisurely appeared 50 meters from the electronics factory's west gate. It carried 2 large thermal containers, tightly covered with blankets. Not a hint of odor or warmth escaped. If it weren't for the sign on the tricycle reading "Braised Pig Trotters," one might mistake it for a waste collection vehicle. Xiaolon pedaled the tricycle with great effort, panting heavily. Even he could not tell whether the creaking was from the wheels or his own bones. Given his physique, it was no wonder he lagged behind in the police force and lacked qualifications for arrest operations. However, being assigned to sell food and act as an informant was somewhat akin to returning to his old profession. In his previous life, Xiaolon was a chef, one of the best, having honed his skills from a young age. He began cooking at 3, donned with open crotch pants. At 7, he took over his father's restaurant. By 10, he had established his own business, collecting payment from customers. At 15, he won the global elite chef competition. At 20, after winning 5 consecutive championships, he was appointed a lifetime judge. By 25, he achieved even greater heights. He passed away young, marking the end of his legendary life with a perfect exclamation point. However, to his surprise, after his death, he traversed into a parallel world, becoming a newly recruited officer at the police station. Due to the law of transference, he was bound to a criminal Nemesis system. Yet, as a mere chef, what did he know about catching criminals? He had no idea how to be a police officer, nor had the system provided any guidance. The system had made its presence known on the first day of his arrival, but had since fallen silent. Fortunately, the first task assigned by his superior was to set up a food stall as an undercover operation. Selling food was a domain he excelled in. The food zone was not merely his comfort zone, it was his dominion. That night, Xiaolon procured 40 pounds of pig trotters. Upon returning home, he washed, chopped, and boiled them, finally letting them simmer overnight. The aroma was intoxicating. At 3 in the morning, the children in the entire neighborhood cried out, driven by their cravings. Their wails triggered the motion sensor lights of several buildings, and the electric bikes below collectively beeped in alarm. Neighbors came knocking, inquiring about what he was cooking. Xiaolon spent the night barricading the door with his 120-pound frame. He had managed to safeguard those 40 pounds of meat. The following day, he dared not venture out until noon. As soon as he opened the door, he was greeted by the sight of several empty bowls scattered on the ground, remnants of rice clinging to their insides. The door frame bore numerous bite marks. The neighbors had not only devoured several bowls of plain rice, but they had nearly gnawed through his door. Having reached such a level in preparing pig trotters, surely he was qualified to set up a stall now. Chapter 2. An explosive aroma rising like a mushroom cloud. Upon finally arriving at his destination, Xiaolon parked the vehicle. The moment he lifted the quilt, an intense aroma of braised meat enveloped him, rising like a mushroom cloud as if an atomic bomb had exploded. It seemed to boldly declare to the world, "Quake in fear, culinary realm. The culinary genius has returned." Han Xiaomei was a female worker in an electronics factory, situated within an industrial park housing over 30 such establishments. However, there was but a single cafeteria serving the entire complex. While the meals there were inexpensive, their taste left much to be desired. In contrast, the numerous food stalls outside the 4 gates of the park thrived, relying heavily on the cafeteria's patronage. Han Xiaomei ventured out to enhance her meager diet, never expecting a newly arrived pancake vendor to deliver a heavy blow to her expectations. The entire pancake only contained 2 meager leaves of lettuce, barely palatable. After returning to her dormitory, her frustration mounted, compelling her to venture out again. Her previous purchase had been at the east gate, but this time she headed to the west gate, determined to avoid that novice vendor. She swore to herself that she absolutely would not purchase anything from an unfamiliar stall today. She sought a familiar vendor where she could trust. As she approached the exit, an overwhelmingly rich aroma wafted towards her, almost tangible in its intensity. The scent was both fierce and commanding, akin to a madman sprinting towards her at full speed. Without a moment's hesitation, it struck her senses, pulling her toward a stall selling braised pig trotters. When Han Xiaomei came to her senses, she was astonished to realize how far she had unconsciously traveled. Observing the other patrons around her, she noted expressions of bewilderment, as if they too had forgotten how they had arrived there. How had they found themselves here in the blink of an eye? Before her was a stall selling braised pig trotters. The vendor, appearing to have arrived late, had parked his food cart in a small corner. The cart was brand new, gleaming alongside the cookware. The vendor himself was a fresh face, clearly new to the trade. Typically, newcomers in this line of work required time to hone their skills. However, upon lifting the lid of his pot, the aroma surged forth, overpowering all other food stalls. Even the stinky tofu and snail noodle stalls paled in comparison to the allure of the braised pig trotters. Witnessing this aromatic threat, several nearby vendors immediately sensed a crisis. One vendor, also selling braised dishes, eyed the situation with a cunning glint. He called out to Xiaolon, "Hey brother, are you perhaps relying a bit too much on technology and trickery?" He continued, "With flavors crafted to this extent, I can see you must be new to the business, right? The braised pig trotters are merely a variant of braised dishes. It's not about how heavy the seasoning is that makes it delicious," he said, deliberately addressing the customers drawn in by the enticing aroma. He feigned the demeanor of a kindly elder sharing wisdom while continuing. "The key to delicious braised dishes lies in the preparation of the broth. Different herbal spices yield distinct flavors. For instance, star anise, cinnamon, Sichuan peppercorn, and cumin. Although the taste may not be as potent as those concocted with technological wizardry, it is a traditional craft passed down by our ancestors, healthy, and nutritious. Though he appeared to be offering friendly advice, the braised dish vendor was subtly insinuating to the gathering crowd that Xiaolan's pig trotters were artificially enhanced with chemical flavorings, while his own offerings represented genuine traditional artistry, wholesome and nourishing. This clumsy attempt at competitive sabotage unexpectedly yielded results, as numerous customers, upon hearing the vendor's words, turned on their heels. Their inquiries shifted to, how much for your braised dishes? Vegetables are 15 yuan per gene. Meat dishes are 30 yuan per gene. Before long, the crowd that had gathered around Xiaolan's stall dispersed, redirecting their interest towards the braised dish vendor. Ultimately, only Han Xiaomei remained in front of Xiaolan's stall, driven by her insatiable curiosity to try something new. Despite having heard it was a fusion of technology and craft, the vendor did not refute this notion, seemingly accepting her intrigue. Yet, the aroma was simply irresistible. Regardless of the technological methods involved, she had already set foot in the realm of street food. Why concern herself with health now? Han Xiaomei took a step forward. Boss, how much for the pig trotters? Xiaolan replied calmly, 80 yuan per gene. That's so expensive. Han Xiaomei gasped, staggering back 2 large steps. This price startled the remaining patrons who were still contemplating their choices, while it delighted the other food vendors who had been wary of competition. What kind of household could afford such a luxury? In this electronics factory, the average worker earned barely over 100 yuan a day. A single box meal was priced over 10 yuan. If patrons did not receive a satisfying portion of 3 meat and 2 vegetable dishes, they would not hesitate to voice their displeasure. The food stalls around them thrived on low margins and high volume. 5 yuan for a serving of fried noodles, and 3 yuan for 2 skewers of sausages. As for pig trotters, given their heavy bone content, there was little meat to savor. Selling them at such a high price was akin to treating customers as fools. TSK, youth truly lacked business acumen. Han Xiaomei's face contorted in indecision. Boss, can't you lower the price a bit? That is not possible, it's a set price. Xiaolan firmly rejected her plea. The ingredients he procured were of the highest quality, and combined with his culinary skills, this price was already a steal. In the past, as a renowned chef, one would have to queue for a taste of his culinary creations. Real estate tycoons sought to reserve a meal for their wedding banquets. Yet even after a second marriage, they had yet to secure a reservation. Xiaolan was untroubled by the thought of unsold pig trotters rather. He feared they would sell too quickly, hindering his task. He recalled the directive from his superiors. The suspect is suspected of gathering accomplices within the electronics factory, concealing a smuggling den. This area is densely populated with workers from numerous electronics factories. To prevent a large-scale riot, we must observe carefully. Only by obtaining accurate intelligence can we strike decisively and capture them all. Thus, Xiaolan's primary objective today was surveillance, not profit. He intended to sell slowly, even preparing a small chair to sit on for the afternoon. Moreover, with braised dishes, the longer they simmered, the more fragrant they became. The current batch was merely a hastily prepared product, lacking its full potential. After simmering for a while longer, the scent could entice workers throughout the entire complex to abandon their posts in pursuit of taste. As Han Xiaomei hesitated, the price remained a considerable hurdle. Yet, the aroma leaking from the thermal container, like the beckoning finger of a temptress, tantalized her heart. Ultimately, Han Xiaomei succumbed to her curiosity, tears brimming in her eyes as she conceded, "Fine, I'll buy. Just give me a small piece to taste." As she spoke, she couldn't help but mentally chastise herself. Her insatiable craving was her downfall. She would even be tempted to sample the flavor of a passing sewage truck. However, in the next moment, any feelings of regret vanished as Xiaolan lifted the lid. At that instant, the aroma enveloped her completely. The crown of Han Xiaomei's head seemed to be abruptly pried open with a delightful pop. A wave of steam, infused with the tantalizing aroma of savory braised delicacies, enveloped her, flooding her senses. She experienced a sudden, disconcerting sensation as if someone were pressing her head underwater. Yet, rather than struggle, she longed to open her mouth wide, flaring her nostrils to inhale deeply. Ah, how exquisite the fragrance is! So intoxicating that her eyes rolled back in sheer ecstasy. It felt as though she could see her great-grandmother beckoning to her from across the river. The scent was simply irresistible. Chapter 3. The price of meat is equivalent to gold. Alas, joy is but a fleeting moment. Xiaolan swiftly closed the lid of the thermal container. Han Xiaomei's mind, which had briefly returned, was once again set free when Xiaolan placed an amber-hued braised pig trotter into the packaging box. Han Xiaomei's senses erupted, and she began to scream, contort, writhe, and transform. It was simply stunning. The braised pig trotter shimmered, as if coated in a layer of honey and glistening with fragrant oil. Its hue was vibrant and consistent, with a tender exterior and a resilient connective tissue binding the meat and skin. A whiff of savory fragrance wafted through the air, followed by a subtle sweetness, a complex aroma crafted from an array of spices. The scent was so enchanting that it seemed to smoothen the very skin on people's faces. Han Xiaomei acutely sensed countless gazes piercing towards her from all directions. It was only when Xiao Lan covered the box that the fervent stares began to wane. 60 yuan. Would you like chili? Upon hearing this, Han Xiaomei's face contorted in shock. How expensive? Just a small piece, and it costs 60. This meat was priced like gold. However, she pondered, what if it were worth the expense? Make it spicy, add plenty. Despite being someone who rarely indulged in spicy food, the exorbitant cost compelled Han Xiaomei to request chili, hoping to recoup some value from it. Xiao Lan retrieved 2 small packets of pre-packaged chili from a nearby thermal bag, placed them alongside the pig trotter, and handed the bag over. Han Xiaomei, trembling, scanned the code to make the payment and left with the pig trotter in hand. After taking just a few steps, she felt an enticing aroma lingering at the tip of her nose, a fragrance that danced around her, ever-present and inescapable. The tantalizing scent was so intoxicating that she dared not open her mouth, fearing an uncontrollable drool. As she continued walking, a sudden realization struck her. Have you ever felt the sensation of carrying a piece of meat while leisurely weaving through a pack of stray dogs? Indeed, that was precisely how Han Xiaomei felt at that moment. For some inexplicable reason, every passerby was casting her admiring glances. Their hungry eyes swept over her, salivating. Finally locking onto the pig trotter she held. Eventually, a bold individual approached and inquired, Sister, how much did you pay for that pig trotter? 60. The price acted like an invisible prod, causing the surrounding crowd to retreat in astonishment. Someone murmured, so expensive. Is this pig bone made of gold? Or is the skin woven with gold? What kind of family can afford this? Listening to their comments, Han Xiaomei suddenly realized that if she brought the pig trotter back to her dormitory, her roommates would undoubtedly mock her in similar fashion. No, she thought. I must consume it on the way. She quickly sought a less crowded spot, preparing to savor her purchase. As she lifted the food box, she noticed the lid was not securely fastened, revealing a small opening. No wonder the enticing aroma had been wafting out all along. Han Xiaomei leaned in closer to take a whiff, the fragrance nearly overwhelming her senses. Fortunately, she did not catch another glimpse of her great-grandmother waving at her. Saliva could not help but flow, an endless cascade. She deftly donned disposable gloves and seized the pig's trotter. With a joyful sound, she indulged in it wholeheartedly. As she took a bite, her mouth overflowed with the richness of collagen, a sensation of utter fulfillment enveloping her. It was as if every taste bud on her tongue had reunited with long-lost siblings, embracing tightly in ecstatic joy, crying out with glee, unwilling to part again. Yet, her throat and stomach fervently expressed their longing for sustenance, pleading for the food to descend swiftly, to reunite within her belly. An overwhelming desire compelled her to swallow the morsel before she could even register it. Her stomach was satisfied, yet her mouth felt achingly empty, a poignant sense of loss lingering. She hastily took a second bite. In her second mouthful, she encountered the layer of fat beneath the pigskin. This was no ordinary fat. It was a premium, resilient fat, meticulously preserved between the flesh. Ah, the exquisite richness of this oil, known to humanity for eons. Our ancestors, through the trials of survival, recognized the vital importance of fat for life. Those who endured etched their craving for it deep within their genes, passing it down through countless generations. In that moment, Han Xiaomei seemed to transcend the annals of time, engaging in a dialogue with the spirits of her forebears, reaching a unanimous conclusion. This fat is truly divine. Ancestral wisdom endures. With her third bite, she encountered the fascia beneath the fat. The trotters, simmered to tender perfection, sprang back with a delightful crispness under her teeth. Its presence was a delightful surprise, rendering the 60 yuan spent instantly worthwhile. Not every piece of meat possesses this fascia. It is a rare and precious tissue connecting muscle to joint. The tension network built upon it supported a native pig, capable of traversing 20,000 steps daily, covering 300 kilometers in its lifetime, robust and well-proportioned, meandering through the wilderness and eventually into her stomach. With her fourth bite, Han Xiaomei cried, not from the pain of biting her finger, but because the pig's trotter was finished. The joy had vanished. Her mind may not have grasped the intrinsic value of the trotter, but her tongue certainly did. This trotter had been infused with nearly 40 perfectly blended spices, leaving a lingering aftertaste. Yes, it was indeed the craftsmanship of the ancient artisans that the vendor had boasted of earlier. Human nature often leads one to boast the loudest about what they possess the least, as if to mask their insecurity. That vendor likely concocted a hasty brew of instant seasoning, tossing in a few slices of star anise and dried tangerine peel, daring to claim mastery. Yet, Xiao Lan adhered to the time-honored method of crafting braised delicacies, starting with pure water, carefully adding precisely measured spices, and slowly coaxing out the aroma over a gentle flame. The ingredients are all of the highest quality. The water is spring water, and the cooking wine used is none other than Maotai. It is said that the finest old broth can be passed down for a century, remaining unspoiled and retaining its flavor, becoming increasingly fragrant with each simmer. This is merely the first pot. Once the old broth is fully prepared, even if one were to toss in a shoe sole to boil, it would render an aroma so delightful that it could bring one to tears. Top-notch ingredients combined with exceptional culinary skills would overshadow any five-star hotel. And this is merely a humble food stall. Those vendors should consider themselves fortunate. Xiaolon, having amassed enough fame and fortune in a previous life, now seeks only to serve the people in this one. Who could possibly compete with him for business? They would surely fail. Xiaolon sat in his chair, scanning the surroundings for traces of the suspect. Suddenly, darkness fell before him as a figure loomed in front of the food stall, casting a shadow. Looking up, he recognized the girl who had just purchased pig trotters. Boss, I'd like another serving of pig trotters. Make it a large piece. It seemed a returning customer had appeared rather swiftly. This was not a promising omen for Xiaolon. Though he felt a twinge of displeasure, he refrained from voicing it. After all, she was unaware that he was on a mission. He selected the largest pig trotter and placed it on the scale. 120, payment complete. This time, Han Xiaomei paid faster than one might react to an upset stomach. Xiaolon furrowed his brow slightly. He had hoped to deter the girl with the price. Why was she so decisive this time? Had she perhaps won the lottery in the brief moment he was distracted? Meanwhile, several nearby vendors and patrons, having overheard the price, turned their attention toward them. A single order for 120 at a food stall was indeed quite extravagant. Just how delectable could it be to warrant such a price? Chapter 4. Spending all my salary to eat my fill. A few individuals approached Xiaolan's stall, seemingly gathering the courage to confront the steep price. To be fair, such a price might not be deemed outrageous in certain night markets or food courts. However, this was an electronics factory area. How many screws must one tighten in a day to earn 120? As they drew closer and noticed the pig trotters, they were astounded by their size. Far too large to fit into a single container. Xiaolon had no choice but to cut it in half with scissors, placing the pieces into two separate boxes. He also included 2 packets of chili, handing them to Han Xiaomei. The enticing aroma wafted through the air, captivating the onlookers. Yet, constrained by their limited funds, they maintained a facade of indifference. Braised pig trotters? Might it be too greasy? One pondered. Is it truly suitable for lunch? Perhaps we should reconsider for dinner. Will you buy it? I'm uncertain of its flavor. Let us observe a bit longer. Will you buy it? I feel this one tea satisfy my hunger. That piece had a considerable amount of bone. Isn't that tubular bone. There should be marrow inside. If one were to suck on it, the speaker trailed off. As saliva began to fill his mouth, he quickly swallowed, fearing the embarrassment of choking. Xiaolon observed their hushed discussions and reluctance to leave. Out of courtesy, he chose not to comment, pretending not to hear. The group jostled one another, urging their companions to make a purchase, yet none could muster the determination to commit. At that moment, the girl who had just departed returned once more. This time, the young lady from Korea had rosy cheeks, exuding an air of exuberance as if she were intoxicated by an overflow of dopamine. Sir, allow me 2 more. Make them substantial. The boldness of her request was spurred by the delightful experience of savoring that enormous bone from her previous dish. Having tasted the marrow, she finally comprehended the literal meaning of to savor the marrow. Initially, as she gazed at that colossal bone, a pang of discomfort struck her heart. At 120 yuan. Surely half of that price was for the weight of the bone. She couldn't possibly eat it all. What a loss that would be. Out of a reluctance to part with her money, she found herself lingering over the bone, sucking on it longingly after finishing the meat. To her surprise, she extracted a generous mouthful of marrow. The richness of that marrow was simply divine. It melded with the sauce from the bone, creating an explosion of flavors in her mouth. The essence of meat, oil, and marrow combined was utterly exquisite, far surpassing the taste of the flesh itself. That single bite was undoubtedly worth its weight in gold. After feasting, her palate was imbued with the lingering aroma of marrow, as if her tongue had been marinated in its essence. She was utterly captivated. Even if it meant spending her entire month's salary, she was determined to indulge. However, a sudden remark from Xiaolon caught her off guard. I'm afraid there's a limit of 2. Her eyes widened in disbelief, and the flush on her face faded to pallor. What? A limit? Are you serious? Xiaolon nodded gravely. No jest. I have a limit on these pig trotters. Each person may purchase a maximum of 2 per day. You may return tomorrow. He had a surveillance task, and the quantity of pig trotters was limited. Given the fervent enthusiasm of this girl, he feared she might devour them all if there were no restrictions. Upon hearing this, the young lady stammered in desperation, No, please. There's no reason for a limit. Who would turn down money? Xiaolon resolutely shook his head. I'm sorry, it's the rule. Realizing that the proprietor was indeed serious, tears glistened in her eyes. She regretted having chosen the smallest piece during her initial purchase. If only she had opted for a larger one. Suddenly, she noticed a few individuals around her. A spark of inspiration struck her as she addressed one of them. Excuse me, do you intend to make a purchase? If not, could you assist me in buying one? I can transfer you the money. The group exchanged bewildered glances, their expressions reflecting a mix of curiosity and skepticism, as if questioning whether this was some sort of unconventional scam. The situation was absurd, defying all logic, outrageous pricing, a vendor unwilling to profit, and a customer pleading for a purchase. None of it seemed normal. Yet, despite the feeling of a potential scam, their curiosity was undeniably piqued. I really want to try one. One individual finally responded, I can help you buy one, but only because I also wish to purchase one myself. All right, thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. After expressing her gratitude, Han Xiaomei hurriedly turned to Xiao Lan and exclaimed, Boss, he is willing to give me his spot. Is that acceptable? Quickly, fetch me the largest one, the very largest. As soon as she finished speaking, several others chimed in. I want one too. Bring me one. Let me try one. Xiao Lan felt an inexplicable sense of having shot herself in the foot. Oh no. She had never anticipated that the scarcity would render the opportunity even more alluring. The other vendors nearby looked on with envy. A bowl of fried rice noodles priced at 5 yuan required the sale of 100 portions to earn 500. Meanwhile here, 5 large pig trotters could yield 500 in profit. If both barrels sold out, the earnings would soar to 4 or 5,000. Fortunately, this nerve-wracking scenario did not continue. As the workday was approaching, several individuals, carrying their packaged trotters, made their way to their respective factories. Many vendors gradually left as well, planning to return around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, as the factory closed at 5. Noticing that Xiao Lan had not departed, the other vendors refrained from reminding her. Sharing a common animosity, Xiao Lan's presence today had undoubtedly stirred a wave of resentment. Meanwhile, many vendors contemplated. This young individual merely stumbled upon a market gap that everyone had previously overlooked. It's just braised pig trotters. Who among them couldn't he do that? Recipes abound online. They could simply head to the market, buy some trotters, boil them for a few hours, and sell them here right as the workers clocked out. If that young man is charging such a high price, I'll sell mine cheaper, at 45 yuan per pound. I could make a killing. While everyone harbored their thoughts, a kindly-looking uncle selling barbecue approached Xiao Lan. Hey, aren't you leaving? It's work time, and there's no one here, no business. The factory doesn't finish until 5. Xiao Lan appreciated the uncle's reminder. However, he was not staying for business, but rather to keep watch. Moreover, he dared not return home. If he did, the 2 barrels of meat would surely be devoured by the neighbors, leaving not a drop of broth behind. Xiao Lan replied, It's fine. I'll stay a little longer and leave later. The barbecue uncle grinned. In that case, let me help you with your business. Give me a piece. That aroma keeps wafting over to me, making me crave it. Xiao Lan chuckled, handing him a piece of pig trotter that was neither too big nor too small. The uncle sniffed it and gulped, so fragrant. I'll take this home to enjoy with my little one when he gets back from school. Haha. After hearing this, Xiao Lan, having weighed the piece, added a ladle of broth to the container. That broth would be enough for them to mix with a couple of bowls of rice. The uncle was pleased and, as he departed, wishing you prosperous business, young man. To Xiao Lan, this was hardly a blessing. I kindly offered you broth to mix with your rice, and you dare to curse me? Suddenly, a heavy hand clapped down on his shoulder. Finally found you. Xiao Lan. Why haven't you replied to the captain's messages? Chapter 5. You actually used this to test the leader. Startled, Xiao Lan turned to see a colleague. Lia Si. According to the memories of the original owner, this Lia Si was also his classmate. In the past, at the police academy, Lia Si had consistently competed with Xiao Lan for the position of last in the physical fitness tests. Hadn't he been assigned a street vending task as well? How did he end up here? Aren't you at the East Gate? What brings you to my side? Am I mistaken? Xiao Lan inquired, puzzled, panting heavily. Lia Si leaned on Xiao Lan's shoulder for a moment before replying. No, the captain instructed us to regroup and return. Did you not hear? Why are you still here? Called for us. How was I to know? Xiao Lan pulled out his phone, only to realize that his outdated model had shut down due to the cold. Oh dear, my phone has betrayed me. Lia Si quickly assisted Xiao Lan in packing up, muttering as he did. We need to hurry. What are you still selling? We've already exposed ourselves. The captain said we weren't up to par and ordered us back for unified training. Xiao Lan responded, I think I'm doing quite well. Don't flatter yourself. I know your cooking skills all too well. An hour later, in the backyard of the police station, 4 food carts were lined up neatly. In front of them stood 4 individuals, lined up for a scolding. Now, let me hear your thoughts. Do you comprehend the significance of this operation? As the vanguard, you are the forefront of our mission. Do you understand the principle that pulling one thread unravels the whole fabric? You were merely tasked with setting up a stall. Yet your flaws were glaring. Either your identities were easily discerned, or your phones died and you became unreachable. What can I even say to you? Captain Liu, with his thinning hair, was exacerbating his plight by scratching his head furiously. Our second team has the audacity to have 4 hidden talents. Are you truly willing to turn us into the laughingstock of the precinct? As Captain Liu grew increasingly agitated, he moved to berate each food cart in turn. You managed to ignite a fire while grilling. If it weren't for the fire extinguisher in the security room, you would have summoned the firefighters. Even if you've never run a barbecue stall, haven't you ever grilled meat at a gathering with friends? And you, frying stinky tofu without thawing it first, did you not know that would cause an explosion? Are you attempting to blow up the factory? Are we here to apprehend you? Or the real criminals? Especially to Lia Si, Captain Liu's voice bore a tone of profound disappointment. You, who gave you the confidence to challenge the pancake roll? I provided you with numerous instructional videos, yet you chose the most difficult one and failed spectacularly. In all my years as an officer, I have never witnessed anyone being recognized as an undercover agent by ordinary citizens. How could you? After reprimanding 3 of them, it was finally Xiao Lan's turn. And you, Why is there a layer of cotton quilt on your cart? Are you here to sleep or to sell? Xiaolon stood tall and replied, report to the captain. The quilt is for insulation. For insulation? What exactly are you making? Captain Lu's head tilted back slightly as he glanced at the sign above. Braised pig trotters? Did I send you any instructional videos on that dish? What on earth are you concocting? Is this even edible? It actually smells quite good. Captain Lu muttered as he lifted the lid of the thermal container. In an instant, an intoxicating aroma wafted forth. Almost simultaneously, in the bustling hall of the precinct, a collective gasp echoed. The officers, seasoned professionals, maintained their composure during work hours. However, the individuals who had come to report incidents could hardly contain their emotions. Reporter A. Wah, I just bought an account and got scammed. Police, how much did you lose? Reporter A. What do you mean how much? Do you smell that aroma? It's delightful. Who is cooking? Reporter B. I told him to stop cutting in line. And he just gave me a huge slap. Then he said, police, what did he say? Reporter B. He exclaimed, how fragrant. Are there any restaurants nearby? Odd. It's not even mealtime. Before long, a colleague, drawn by the enticing scent, arrived from the back. What was happening? Was the canteen experimenting with new dishes? The aroma seemed to emanate from that direction, intoxicatingly fragrant, causing chaos in the hall. Old Lu, awakening from his reverie, swiftly closed the lid. The disorder in the hall suggested the overwhelming impact of the aroma on those in close proximity. It was a narrow escape from having his very spirit dislodged. He could barely stand. Steadying himself against the thermal container, he swayed for several moments before managing to turn around. At that moment, his face glistened with the moisture of steam. His eternally furrowed brow, typically set in a deep frown, had miraculously smoothed out as if freshly pressed. He wiped his face, intending to shake off the moisture, but found himself drawn to sniff his hand instead. Strangely, despite it being mere steam, it carried an alluring scent. Had his face absorbed the fragrance? This chain of thought, though seemingly prolonged, transpired in mere seconds. The colleague who had hurried over from the front was still awaiting a response, prompting old Lu to wave his hand dismissively. I'm not sure. I'll inquire with the canteen shortly. You all may continue your tasks. Saying this, he discreetly pulled the blanket over the thermal container, sealing the delightful aroma away. The noise in the hall quieted somewhat thereafter. Once the crowd dispersed, the captain leaned against the snack cart, lost in thought, his silence profound. After a considerable pause, he finally swallowed hard and inquired, Xiao Pig's trotters, or rather, Xiaolon, did you prepare these trotters? Xiaolon, nearly renamed, replied, reporting, Captain, I made them. The captain remained serious, his gaze fixed on the snack cart, as if his eyes could penetrate through the blanket and thermal container to discern the trotters within. No one could fathom the temptation he faced. To draw an imperfect analogy, it was akin to standing before two mountains of gold, gold that he could entirely claim within his authority, without facing severe repercussions. Yet, after a prolonged stare, the captain merely clenched his fists, closed his eyes, turned his face away from the trotters, though his glance toward Xiaolon bore an unspoken resentment. Oh, Xiaolon, you set up a stall just to test your superior, almost swayed by your tempting offerings. Thankfully, my resolve is steadfast. I can withstand this allure. Cough, unexpectedly. Xiaolon possesses quite a talent for cooking. Well then, you should continue with your stall this afternoon. As for the other three, the team has hired a master to teach you, and he will be arriving shortly. Make sure to learn. If you fail to grasp it, do not return tonight. Turning to Xiaolon, the captain's tone softened. Please apply for a work phone. Do not use that fruit phone anymore. It malfunctions as soon as the weather turns cold. More delicate than a person. If you encounter any issues at work, report to me at any time. Just then, Xiaolon had an issue to address. Captain, I have a question regarding finances. Old Lu chuckled knowingly. I understand. You are inquiring about reimbursement, correct? Rest assured, this operation has a generous budget. Whatever costs you incur will certainly be reimbursed. Xiaolon replied. No, I wish to ask how to handle the money earned. Upon hearing this, the captain burst into laughter. Why are you concerned about that? How much can you possibly earn? Recovering costs would be commendable. Here's the deal. You may keep the money you earn as your mission allowance. Standing outside in the frigid weather all day is no easy feat. As for the rest of you, focus on honing your skills. If you cause any more disturbances leading to police calls, your bonuses will be deducted. Chapter 6. This sauce is delicious enough to dip shoe soles. Meanwhile, within the factory, Han Xiaomei enjoys slightly better treatment than the assembly line workers, as she occupies a clerical position in the office. However, for her, being a clerk is merely a change of venue for tightening screws. Her salary surpasses that of the workers by a few hundred, yet the assembly line workers earn overtime pay for every minute worked beyond 5 p.m. In contrast, she must willingly work until 8 p.m. without any overtime compensation. The plight of workers differs in title, but remains equally humble. Perhaps it is the exhaustion from overtime that intensifies her craving for food, as it stands as the quickest and most direct means for ordinary individuals to derive joy. Her colleagues in the office share her sentiments, all being aficionados of food. On this day, the moment Han Xiaomei stepped into the office, all her colleagues craned their necks like giraffes, their noses twitching in unison as if transformed into hounds. What is going on? Why does it smell so delightful? My goodness. The aroma is overwhelming. Who brought food? Han Xiaomei felt somewhat embarrassed and could only discreetly hide her bag at the bottom of her desk drawer. It is not that she is unwilling to share the pig trotters with others. Well, she indeed hesitates to share, but that is not the main point. The crux of the matter is that she has already finished the trotters. What remains in her bag are the remnants of pig bones, a bit of sauce from her meal, and 2 packets of spicy seasoning that she did not manage to open. Why keep the bones after finishing the meal? Admitting this feels a bit awkward. She has a small electric hot pot in her dormitory, and these leftover bones can be brought back to make soup. Adding some noodles and vegetables will yield a nourishing bowl of bone broth with greens. After all, the saliva on the bones is her own, and the pot is hers as well. As long as she does not mind, it is perfectly acceptable. Han Xiaomei does not often indulge in such practices. It is just that the flavor of these bones was simply too enticing to discard. She possessed 2 containers, one filled with bones and the other with sauce, both securely sealed with lids. Initially, she believed that by placing them in her bag, they would remain undetected. To her astonishment, her colleagues possessed an uncanny sense of smell, detecting the aroma as soon as she entered the room. Even more surprising was that despite having hidden her bag in a drawer, the enticing fragrance lingered in the air. How incredibly fragrant it was. My stomach began to rumble, despite having had lunch. Who brought such delicious food to the office? The scent was irresistible. I implore you to reveal the source so I can rush there after work. Some could not contain themselves and rose from their seats, sniffing around the office, starting from the entrance and progressing from one workstation to another. Finally, upon reaching Han Xiaomei's desk, one exclaimed, "Sister, you smell divine." As soon as the words left their lips, several others in the office sprang to their feet, surrounding Han Xiaomei. Encircled by colleagues with hungry gazes, Han Xiaomei timidly retrieved her bag from the drawer. I can explain. It's not that I don't want to share, it's just a bit embarrassing. However, before she could finish her sentence, the moment she unzipped the bag, gasps erupted from her colleagues, drowning out her voice. Oh my goodness, it smells even better. I was already weak in the knees, and now it's even more intoxicating. I can't handle it. With the alluring aroma permeating the air, I felt as though I could devour every piece of furniture in the office. Enough already. I have 2 cucumbers here. Let me dip them in the sauce. Sister, please don't make me beg on my knees. Gazing at her frenzied colleagues, who were bouncing around like demented creatures, Han Xiaomei suddenly felt a sense of ease. No one seemed to mind the few bones that had been devoured down to the marrow. All eyes were fixated on the other plastic container filled with sauce. Seeing their eager expressions calmed her. Surely, others would also hesitate to discard leftover bones just as she did. With this thought in mind, she boldly opened the sealed lid, inviting them to dip, provided they didn't mind. As the lid was lifted, the aroma intensified, inciting yet another round of exaggerated exclamations. Previously, Xiaolan had set up her stall outdoors, where the vast space and mingling scents of various snacks diluted the fragrance. Now, in the confines of the office, with its closed windows and only the air conditioning humming, the scent swirled and lingered, refusing to dissipate. Silence fell over the room as everyone's mouths watered. If they didn't eat soon, there would be a flood in the office. The 2 cucumbers were swiftly sliced into multiple pieces. Each person grabbed a segment and dipped it into the sauce. Hey, don't dip so much. Are you trying to give the cucumber a bath? Leave some for me. There's plenty. Oh my goodness, this is delicious. Crunch, crunch. How is there only 1 piece of cucumber left? You're dipping potato chips. That is outrageous. Share a piece with me. Why are you using your fingers to dip? Have some hygiene, please. I want in 2. In an instant, the office erupted into chaos, resembling a pack of hungry dogs fighting over scraps. When the cucumbers were depleted, one resorted to potato chips, and eventually, even fingers were dipped into the sauce. The dressing, merely a thin layer, was fervently contested by a group of colleagues in the office. In the eye of the storm, Han Xiaomei initially regretted her slow retreat, nearly suffocated by the crowd. Later, she lamented her hesitation to join the fray, feeling too proud to snatch a share, and ended up with only a single bite. It was evident that the sauce accompanying the braised pig's trotters was delectable enough to savor even on the soles of one's shoes. Dipping cucumbers provided a unique flavor, and no matter how one indulged, it never became tiresome. Eventually, the sauce was exhausted, and only a trace of oil remained in the container. A colleague, quick on the uptake, seized the plastic box and began to lick it clean. With sheer determination, they polished the textured surface of the disposable container with their tongue. Once finished, a sense of hunger still lingered among the group. Noticing that Han Xiaomei had 2 bags of chili condiments that accompanied the pig's trotters, a chorus of salivating mouths ensued. Though reluctant, Han Xiaomei understood that if she did not share those 2 bags of chili to excite her colleagues, they might very well devour her alive. Eat, eat. And thus ensued another chaotic melee. At this moment, even cucumbers and potato chips were rendered unnecessary. They dove straight into the chili. One must admit, the chili oil produced by Xiaolan was unlike any ordinary condiment. Salty, savory, numbing, and spicy, it was a pungent delight. The fresh, brewed chili oil bore no resemblance to industrial chili extracts. Its complexity was rich, revealing hints of onion and garlic, complemented by an astonishing essence of braised meat. One could even discern bits of meat. Heavens, what a treasure trove this place is. Even the chili oil is exquisite. Coughing. It seemed that Lao Gan Ma's esteemed position in her heart was now usurped, relegated to a lesser status. If only I had a bowl of noodles to mix with this chili, I could devour both bowl and chopsticks. As they coughed and choked, they clamored for more chili. Their chatter incessant while their hands remained in constant motion. Meanwhile, Han Xiaomei found herself crying while eating. She regretted it deeply. When she had savored the braised pig's trotters earlier, the experience had been so astonishing that she completely overlooked the addition of chili oil. Now, tasting it, she realized that even the chili condiments provided by the stallholder were remarkably delicious. The combination of chili with braised pig's trotters would undoubtedly create a culinary masterpiece. Regret. Such regret. There was no choice but to return after work and purchase more. She had to indulge thoroughly. Chapter 7. Brother, you smell divine elsewhere, on the factory assembly line. A stir was brewing. The catalyst for this commotion was, of course, Xiaolan's sumptuous pig's trotters. When Han Xiaomei purchased the trotters, many onlookers, including Song Ho, were drawn to buy some as well. The aroma of the trotters was so enticing that he nearly swallowed the bones whole. Just as his meal concluded, it was time to start work, and there was no opportunity to buy a second one. Song Ho initially thought he could endure the craving until after work. However, as he sat through his shift, the lingering taste of meat wafted into his nostrils, making it impossible for him to remain still. On the factory assembly line, each worker was tasked with performing simple, mechanical labor. The individual is tasked with fastening the first screw, subsequently passing it to the next person to secure the second. Throughout this process, there is no need for mental exertion. Often, as the mind vacates and the hands engage in their labor, time swiftly elapses. Yet, at present, Song Ho is preoccupied with thoughts of the tantalizing braised pig trotters. The chair beneath him feels as if it were pricked by needles, each passing moment an ordeal. Unable to contain himself, Song Ho can only moisten his lips, savoring the lingering taste on his tongue to alleviate his cravings. This indulgence persists for 2 hours. As he relishes the moment, a colleague seated nearby suddenly nudges his elbow. Hey, what are you eating? It smells delightful. I've noticed your mouth has been moving for 2 hours. Could you spare me a taste? The neighboring worker, a rough and boisterous man, unexpectedly displays a hint of bashfulness at this moment. It appears he has wrestled with his hesitation for quite some time before mustering the courage to ask for a bite. However, such a delicacy cannot be shared. Song Ho cannot very well lend his tongue for a couple of tastes. Thus, he awkwardly declines, I've finished. There's none left. The colleague lets out a disappointed oh, but there is little else to be done. Yet, mere 10 minutes later, Song Ho finds himself unable to resist indulging again. This time, the neighboring worker grows displeased, muttering under his breath. Eating alone without a thought to share. And yet you continue smacking your lips. Snacking during work hours is against the rules. Did I say anything wrong? I merely asked for a taste. And you deceived me with your claims of having none. How stingy you are, as if I owe you something in return. Although he does not name names, Song Ho immediately recognizes the words are directed at him. His temperament, already frazzled in this B class, only worsens with the colleague's veiled sarcasm. In a moment of frustration, his hand slips, and his elbow inadvertently knocks over the basket, sending the electronic components meant for his neighbor crashing to the floor. The sound reverberates like the beating of war drums. Mistaking it for provocation, the neighboring worker leaps up in protest. Hey, what are you implying? Are you upset because I said a few words to you? Must you be so petty? Hearing this, Song Ho retaliates. Who are you calling petty? Just because you ask. Does that mean I must comply? Who do you think you are? If I refuse, then I refuse. What is deceitful about that? We see each other daily. And yet you act affronted by my words. Just as the tension escalates, the foreman arrives, observing the two grappling with each other's collars. Hey, what are you two doing? Don't create a ruckus during work hours. Sit down. Do you wish to have your wages docked? The foreman's admonition douses the fiery tempers of the two men, momentarily bringing them back to their senses. Although the situation could have diffused here, the problem arose from the neighboring worker. Once calm, he suddenly felt the proximity between them was unsettling. Something was amiss. It is said that breath exhaled from a beautiful woman is fragrant. A term exists to describe this aroma, breath like orchids. Yet, Song Ho's allure surpassed even that. The fragrance that he exhaled was not merely that of orchids. It also encompassed the scents of angelica, clove, star anise, fennel, bay laurel, cardamom, Sichuan pepper, and dried tangerine peel. The two individuals were mere inches apart, and the overwhelming array of aromas assaulted the senses, leaving the nearby colleague in a daze. The tantalizing scent of the braised pig trotters not only tormented Song Ho, but also plagued his neighbor throughout the afternoon. While Song Ho could savor the flavor with a smacking of his lips, his colleague could only swallow dryly. Determined to uncover the source of such an alluring aroma, he could not restrain himself from leaning in closer. Brother, what on earth are you eating? It smells divine. Unfortunately, just at that moment, Song Ho turned instinctively upon hearing the voice, resulting in their lips colliding unexpectedly. With dozens of assembly lines and hundreds of workers present, this spectacle did not go unnoticed. Gasps erupted from the crowd. What the hell? The two startled participants recoiled from one another, simultaneously gagging and hurling expletives. What the hell? Are you trying to get yourself killed? Who do you think you are? I'll curse your entire family. A disagreement quickly escalated into a physical altercation. The situation intensified, and no one could contain it. The two men became entangled, tumbling from the table to the floor. The surrounding workers, alarmed, scattered in all directions. A singular disruption could halt the entire assembly line, yet the others relished the break from labor, gathering to witness the commotion and even whipping out their phones to capture the spectacle. As they filmed, whispers of gossip circulated. What is going on? Why are they fighting? I have no idea. I heard one guy confessed his feelings to another and, after being rejected, went in for a kiss, which led to the brawl. No way. That's outrageous. That's incredibly bold. Don't mess with me. I'm not joking. I heard it with my own ears. He said, "Brother, you smell amazing." And then he just went for it. The absurd rumors spread rapidly among the workers. The live stream inadvertently captured these discussions, allowing every viewer tuning in to overhear. The chat filled with comments. Our role models. Brother, you smell wonderful. The audience grew, and the topic soared to the trending news, with each listener incredulous at the bizarre cause of the fight. Who would have believed that two grown men would come to blows over a pig trotter? Suddenly, a comment in the live stream caught everyone's attention. Wait, isn't that the scoundrel boss from the Jiangnan leather factory, Huang He, lurking in the corner? He owes his workers 3.5 billion and fled with his mistress. People have been searching for him for over a decade. How dare he return to the country and work in a factory? Are you serious? No joke. No joke. That guy in the corner is definitely Huang He. I'm calling the police. Such sensational news left the onlookers astonished. What began as a dispute over feelings had transformed into the pursuit of a fugitive, elevating the excitement to new heights. As more related topics surged to the top of trending searches, the crowd's attention shifted from the fighting men to Huang He, the fugitive, who was now the center of their curiosity. Huang He, dark and slender, blended into the crowd like a piece of spoiled bacon, his smile revealing teeth but obscuring his eyes. He believed he was merely watching a performance, unaware that many spectators were quietly observing him. He epitomized the adage of standing on a bridge to admire the scenery, while those gazing upon him from above were, in fact, watching him. An increasing number of viewers in the live stream chat began to identify him. Indeed, it's him, Huang He. I would recognize him even in ashes. This time, he cannot escape. He must return my hard-earned money. I can't believe it's really him. Hello, 110? Chapter 8. The fugitive captured by pig-ass trotters. Upon receiving the report, the police swiftly dispatched officers. Following a resounding siren, Song Ho and his workmate were escorted back to the police station for their brawl. The authorities also took along several bystanders, claiming they needed assistance with the investigation. Huang He, who had been watching the entire spectacle from a corner, was invited to join them in the vehicle. So engrossed was he in the commotion that he had not checked the trending news, mistakenly believing he was merely being asked to assist in taking a statement. When apprehended, Huang He offered little resistance and complied with the officers. Little did he know that the police had captured a group merely as a distraction. Their true objective was to capture him. The altercation would result in nothing more than a public order offense and administrative detention, easily resolvable if the parties reached an understanding. However, Huang He, who owed a staggering 3.5 billion, was the real catch. Yet, this big fish remained blissfully unaware that he had been ensnared. As he sat in the police car, he continued to indulge in the spectacle, ears perked up to hear Song Ho and his colleague hurl insults at one another. Before Huang He absconded abroad, the Skynet system had yet to be fully implemented, and facial recognition technology was non-existent. The police records contained only a poorly printed wanted poster of him. Since his sister-in-law squandered his fortune abroad and eloped with her lover, he had lived under an alias, traversing the globe as an undocumented worker. Years flew by, and the hardships of life had transformed him from a once rotund figure into a shadow of his former self, rendering him almost unrecognizable. His ex-wife would not even recognize him. He was confident that the police would not either. Thus, he boldly returned to his homeland, eagerly anticipating the expiration of the statute of limitations, after which he could access his hidden assets and return to a life of affluence. Barring any unforeseen circumstances, he believed there would be no mishaps. However, to his astonishment, upon entering the interrogation room, the police called out his name. Huang He, sit down and confess honestly. Huang He was struck as if by a bolt from the blue, left speechless. He had no knowledge that he had been trending online. Within half an hour, over 100 victims had identified him. His ex-wife may have forgotten him, perhaps because he had never truly occupied a space in her heart. Yet those he had wronged would undoubtedly, without a doubt, remember his face. Meanwhile, in a deep slumber, Xiao Lan was abruptly awakened by the sound of a notification. Detection of A-level fugitive has confessed. The capture is successful. A reward of 100,000 yuan has been granted. Please continue the good work. The reward has been transferred, and the source has been legalized. Feel free to use it. Notification. A limited time task has been issued. Assist in capturing one criminal within 24 hours to unlock the points redemption feature. Dazed and confused, Xiao Lan felt as though she were trapped in a dream. What fugitive? What reward? He did nothing at all. Where did the fugitive and the reward come from? Before he could confirm whether the system was indeed speaking, Li ASI came over to rouse him. Wake up, don't fall asleep. The theory class is over. Now we need to head to the cafeteria for practical training. Xiaolon rubbed his face and sleepily lifted his head. The four plainclothes officers found themselves in a conference room, the PowerPoint presentation still displaying an introduction to 100 delicious and easy-to-make street snacks. This training course was specifically designed for his three colleagues, while Xiaolon was merely there to make up the numbers, having dozed off during the session. As the group shifted their training location en route to the cafeteria, they suddenly heard a cheer from the direction of the first squad. What is happening? Why all the excitement? Upon inquiry, they learned that the first squad had apprehended a fugitive during Xiaolan's training. The police station received a report of a brawl at the electronics factory. Coincidentally, officers from the first squad were patrolling nearby and were dispatched to investigate. To their surprise, multiple public reports followed, indicating that among the onlookers of the fight, a fugitive who had been on the run for over a decade was recognized. It was said that the fugitive was completely unaware that his identity had been exposed, and when taken into custody, he complied with a cheerful demeanor. Thus, the first squad effortlessly captured a fugitive linked to a case involving 3.5 billion yuan. The thought of the fugitive suddenly struck Xiaolon. Recalling the voice that had echoed in his mind earlier, it seemed to mention a fugitive. Could it possibly relate to him? Before he could ponder further, old Lu approached with a stern expression, glaring at one of them aside from Xiaolon. This electronics park was originally the jurisdiction of their second squad. Had it not been for the mischief caused by these three plainclothes officers, their mission would not have been interrupted, and they would still be surrounding the electronics factory. It was certainly not their turn to reap the rewards. Look at the smugness of that first squad leader, his grin nearly stretching to his temples. His words were particularly stinging. Old Lu, I truly apologize. Seeing your second squad so occupied with training and meetings, I didn't want to disturb you. We just sent a couple of rookies to take a glance, and unexpectedly caught a big fish. By the way, what are you all training for? Oh, a barbecue? Perfect. Grill up a couple of plates of kidneys to reward the brothers involved in the capture and interrogation. This remark infuriated old Lu, nearly prompting him to roast the kidneys of his three talented subordinates. He had been competing with the first squad leader his entire life. From elementary school to high school, from police academy to the police force, they had always been rivals. It had shifted from academic achievements to operational results, driven by sheer defiance. Capturing a fugitive who absconded with embezzled funds was nothing. The real prize was a whole nest of smugglers. The first squad leader exclaimed, a whole nest? You'd better keep a close watch, lest the fish escape. Don't hesitate to ask for help. We in the first squad are numerous. Every one of us can be of significant assistance. Old Lu gritted his teeth. No need. My team is more than capable. Once the first squad leader departed, old Lu, fuming, grabbed each of his three subordinates by the ear. You all better learn quickly. Have you heard? This afternoon, we're following Xiaolon to the market. If anyone recognizes us, you shall face the consequences. The three responded meekly, nodding in unison. Once old Lu departed, they encircled Xiaolon. Brother Lon, please enlighten us. Your culinary skills were once on par with ours. What brought about this sudden epiphany? Who says I was ever on the same level as you? The other two pointed accusingly at Li Si. Li Si chuckled awkwardly, draping an arm over his shoulder. It's merely a misunderstanding. Back in police academy, we never witnessed your prowess. Here's the deal, Brother Lon. Li Si whispered conspiratorially, his expression shrouded in secrecy. You guide us in culinary arts. And when the police team has its next fitness test, we'll go easy on you. Trailing behind you, we can at least ensure you finish fourth from last. Xiaolon looked at them incredulously. Is finishing fourth from last any more glorious than coming in last? Without hesitation, he replied, it's a deal. However, since the instructor is already here, you should learn from him first. If you struggle, I'll provide you with additional lessons. While the trio underwent their training, Xiaolon went to collect his newly assigned work phone. He inserted the SIM card and pressed the power button. As the screen illuminated, an unread message popped up. Huagua bank account ending in 6666 received 100,000 yuan. Current balance, 101,886 yuan. Xiaolon was taken aback. Just last night, after purchasing pig trotters, his account had only held 1,886 yuan. How had it suddenly swelled by 100,000 yuan? Could it truly be a gift from the system? But he hadn't apprehended any criminals, had he? Chapter 9. One more second, an ID starve out of caution. Xiaolon excused himself to the restroom and promptly called the bank's customer service to inquire about the source of this deposit. He was soon informed that before his grandfather passed away, he had invested his retirement funds into a family fund on Xiaolan's behalf. The fund would be unlocked upon his formal employment, and this 100,000 yuan was the first dividend. The source of the funds was legitimate and verifiable. Dividends were irregular and unpredictable, but once granted, he could use them without hesitation. Xiaolon was left utterly bewildered. The explanation was so reasonable that he couldn't discern whether it was his grandfather's doing or a gift from the system. Regardless, the system issued a time-limited task. It seemed prudent to attempt to complete the task and see if there might be a reward. Upon returning to the kitchen of the cafeteria, he assessed the trio's training progress. It wasn't that they had made no progress. Rather, it was minimal. When tasked with frying stinky tofu, they nearly leapt into the oil to battle the tofu. When asked to grill, they seemed eager to skewer an entire pig. With a sigh, Xiaolon rolled up his sleeves and stepped in to assist the instructor. He couldn't allow these three talents to hinder his time-sensitive task. Before long, the clock struck 4:30, signaling the imminent closing time for the electronics factory. Let us pack up and head out. With a sharp squeak, Xiaolon engaged the brakes, bringing the tricycle to the west gate of the factory. As the vehicle came to a halt, an enticing aroma of marinated pig trotters wafted into his nostrils. Xiaolon cast a glance backward. The quilt was snugly tucked, the thermos remained unopened, and the aroma of his braised pig's trotters did not waft into the air. So, who was selling braised pig's trotters? Xiaolon possessed an exceptionally keen sense of smell, and as he followed the direction of the enticing fragrance, he spotted a familiar face. Was that not the vendor of braised delicacies from the morning? This individual had previously attempted to undermine Xiaolan's business, brazenly claiming before a crowd that Xiaolan's trotters were merely a product of technology and ruthless labor, seizing the opportunity to promote his own offerings. How curious that within a mere afternoon's absence, he too had begun selling trotters. The braised delicacy vendor was also keenly aware of Xiaolan's presence, and as soon as their eyes met, the vendor instinctively averted his gaze, feeling a twinge of guilt. Yet, he quickly rationalized that selling trotters was not Xiaolan's exclusive domain. Business thrived on competition. So what if he jumped on the bandwagon? With that thought, he straightened his posture, raised his chin defiantly, and assumed a provocative stance. He had arrived early, chosen a superior location, and was offering his wares at half the price of Xiaolan's. This business venture was his for the taking. Xiaolon couldn't help but chuckle inwardly. He regarded such competitive antics with indifference, for he did not truly rely on street vending for his livelihood. However, he held a firm disdain for the wastefulness of ingredients. In the span of an afternoon, to buy trotters, wash, cut, chop, blanch, boil, stew, and marinate, where would one find the time? The trotters hastily prepared by the vendor could only be a hasty amalgamation of technology and ruthless labor. To Xiaolon, they were nothing more than a pot of overcooked refuse. Simply by inhaling the aroma, he could discern the quality. At first whiff, the vendor's trotters seemed to exude confidence, their scent wafting a good 10 meters. Yet, upon closer inspection, the cheap industrial fragrance became apparent, an overpowering, hollow allure. If one were to compare them to Xiaolan's exquisite soy-braised trotters, it would be akin to contrasting a toilet freshener with a fine perfume. Xiaolon waved a hand before his nose, then donned a mask, striving to shield himself from the olfactory assault. Alas, it proved futile. The inferior scent was too aggressive. One could only combat magic with magic. He lifted the quilt from his thermos and deftly unlatched one of its locks. A rich, robust aroma wafted forth from the gap beneath the lid, unceremoniously dispelling the invading scent and asserting its dominance. Moments later, all the nearby food vendors halted their activities, turning to gaze with astonishment and confusion. Their eyes darted about eagerly, searching for the source of the delectable aroma. However, Xiaolan's low-key demeanor, his mask obscuring his features, and his lack of further action, rendered them incapable of pinpointing the source of the enticing scent to him. What an exquisite fragrance! Goodness, it is simply divine. The vendors, unable to locate the origin of the aroma, could only murmur to themselves before returning to their tasks. The hour of 5 had arrived, and soon the workers would emerge from their shifts. Preparations needed to be swiftly made. After a while, workers gradually emerged from the factory gates as their shifts came to an end. The first few were relatively composed, as their workshop was close to the entrance, allowing them to exit swiftly. A group of them lit cigarettes, poised to take a puff, when suddenly, a forceful shove from behind sent the person in front stumbling. Before they could utter a curse, the intruder called out, "Excuse me, mate, I'm in a hurry." No sooner had the words escaped their lips than a throng of a dozen hurried individuals surged through the gate, echoing, "Excuse us, we're in a rush." Some were even tugging at their friends, urging, "Hurry up. If we're late for the braised pig trotters, they'll be all gone." The ones who had been jostled clutched their broken cigarettes, their heads spinning from the unexpected push. Were these people starving? The urgency in their demeanor suggested that another second might mean starvation. Before they could regain their composure, another wave of people poured out from the factory, shouting for passage as they too rushed to escape. The commotion resembled a stampede of wild boars or the chaotic retreat of elephants startled by buffalo. Those in the know understood they were racing to snatch up braised pig trotters, while the uninformed might have thought they were rescuing their kin. What was this spectacle? Were they in such a frenzy, as if the specter of hunger was upon them? It seemed they were all murmuring about the braised pig trotters. Braised pig trotters? Is that the place? It sounds enticing. Let us go see. A throng of people headed towards the vendor, many of whom were mere bystanders caught up in the excitement. The vendor had deliberately arrived early to secure the stall closest to the west gate, and now the benefits of his foresight were apparent. Many had merely caught a glimpse of their colleagues enjoying the delicacy during lunch, which had sparked an insatiable craving, prompting them to plan a purchase after work. They did not recognize Xiaolon, nor were they aware of where the authentic braised pig trotters were sold. Hearing the vendor call out, "Fresh braised pig trotters," they assumed their colleagues had bought them here. "How much for the braised pig trotters?" Asked one. 45 yuan per jean, replied the vendor, grinning broadly. He stole a furtive glance at the neglected stall of Xiao Lan in the distance, feeling increasingly justified in his decision to follow the crowd. Customers were already arriving. Although some considered the price a tad steep, the glowing descriptions from their colleagues during lunch had led them to believe the taste was unparalleled, the best they had ever encountered, and thus worth every penny. As they recalled the mouth-watering descriptions, they nearly salivated at the thought. Having come this far, there was no turning back. All right, I'll take one. I want one too. The vendor beamed with such delight that it seemed his teeth might fall out from smiling. Great, great. We have plenty. Chapter 10. The discovery of the treasure vendor. The vendor lifted the lid of the pot and, using stainless steel tongs, extracted a hefty piece of pig trotter, tossing it into a plastic dish. The trotters contained more bone than meat, with dark blood seeping from the cut surfaces. These were the frozen trotters he had purchased earlier from the wholesale market. It is uncertain how long these pig trotters have been frozen. Perhaps the date of the pig's demise predates the birth of the vendor at the delicacy stall. In a rush, he opted not to thaw them, tossing them directly into the pot, ice shards and blood still intact. As they boiled, a foul odor permeated the air, accompanied by the bubbling of blood. The entire room was engulfed in a repugnant stench, prompting retching from both upstairs and downstairs. Nevertheless, this was of little concern. A generous addition of spices would easily mask the unpleasantness. A splash of food coloring and concentrated essence was all it took to obliterate the foul smell. No one could discern whether the pig had perished last week or during the Shang and Zhou dynasties. Once removed from the braising pot, the vendor brushed the trotters with barbecue sauce and sweet chili sauce, lavishing them with an abundant dusting of cumin and chicken essence. He adorned them with white and black pepper, sesame seeds, and enveloped them in layers of lard, red oil, chili oil, and sesame oil. Finally, he crowned the dish with a generous scattering of scallions, ginger, garlic, and coriander, deeming the preparation complete. With such an array of spices and meticulous processes, not a hint of blood, nor even a drop of urine, could be detected. While the nose and palate might be deceived by the spices, what of the unsightly appearance? Fear not. When skill falls short, technology steps in. The vendor had preemptively illuminated the fresh produce lights. The warm, orange glow served to enhance the food's allure significantly. Under this light, the pig trotters radiated a tantalizing caramel hue, and even the darkened blood appeared as a rich sauce. Billowing steam, infused with a potent industrial fragrance, surged forth. Warm and aromatic, it was enough to beguile any unsuspecting patron. A queue quickly formed as customers, entranced by the scent, salivated over the braised trotters. Boss, I've paid. Hey boss, weigh one for me too. Before long, a long line had formed in front of the vendor's stall. Meanwhile, Han Xiaomei, accompanied by several colleagues, hurriedly exited the office. Their work hours had already extended beyond those of typical laborers, and this opportunity to slip away under the pretense of a restroom break was a rare treat. Upon stepping outside and catching a whiff of the pig trotters, Han Xiaomei stomped her foot in dismay. Oh no, the treasure vendor has been discovered. Had I known, I would have sneaked out an hour early. Just look at this line. Her colleagues shared her concern, their expressions marred with anxiety. It's not the queue that worries me. But what if we reach the front only to find they VE sold out? Our wait would be in vain. Unwilling to abandon her quest for the coveted dish, Han Xiaomei proposed, why don't we send one person to hold our place in line while the rest of us check how many trotters the vendor has left? If there is plenty in stock, we can queue up. After all, the vendor has a limit on purchases, so we needn't fear that others will buy them all. All right, I'll stay in line while you all go ask. One person took the rear of the queue while the others linked arms and made their way to the front. The line was indeed for the delicacy vendor, who was tirelessly weighing and pricing the trotters, confirming payments, and vigorously sprinkling an array of spices over each piece. The tremors of his arms were so pronounced that they resembled a seizure. Even from a meter away, Han Xiaomei felt as though the spices were wafting into her nostrils, provoking an irresistible urge to sneeze. Several girls could not help but raise their arms, covering their mouths and noses with their sleeves. Before they had the chance to speak, someone nearby beat them to it with an inquiry. Boss, with so many people in line, do you have enough pig trotters to sell? If I join the queue now, will I still get a chance? The vendor glanced up at the line, and with a cheerful demeanor, he patted the 6 enormous thermal containers before him. Plenty, absolutely plenty. Each person is limited to 2. If you queue now, you will definitely still get some. The vendor, emulating the limit purchase strategy of Xiaolan, believed it to be a clever tactic for creating a sense of scarcity. His imitation appeared to be yielding favorable results. Reassured by the vendor's response, the questioner proceeded to the rear of the line. Han Xiaomei's friends tugged at her sleeve, signaling that she could return and wait in line without worry. However, Han Xiaomei took a few steps back, frowning and shaking her head. That's not him. The vendor this afternoon wasn't the same one. I remember it was a young, tall, and slender guy. The flavor of his pig trotters was also different. No wonder the enticing aroma felt somewhat inauthentic. It turned out to be merely a trend follower. Her colleagues hesitated upon hearing her words. Although it was not the same vendor she had patronized earlier, the long line suggested that this stall must also serve delicious fare. Why not give this one a try? The taste should be similar, they proposed. Han Xiaomei internally shook her head. The flavors were distinctly inferior. Though she seldom indulged in braised pig trotters, she was resolute in her conviction. The pig trotters purchased at noon were undoubtedly the most delectable in the world. She scanned her surroundings in search of Xiaolon, but at that moment, he was seated on a folding chair, completely obscured by the stall. In front of him was a stir-fried noodle vendor, whose fiery cooking created a cloud of smoke that made it nearly impossible to see anyone. Unable to locate Xiaolon, Han Xiaomei felt a twinge of uncertainty. Having come this far, she couldn't leave empty-handed. Perhaps it was worth sampling this vendor's culinary prowess? At that moment, her attention was drawn to a young man who had just purchased a pig trotter. He appeared impatient, lifting the lid of the container almost immediately after receiving it from the vendor. Clearly, he was a fellow foodie, unable to wait until he returned home to savor the delicacy. Like Han Xiaomei before, he stood by the curb and began to indulge, holding a plastic container. He donned disposable gloves, removed the generous garnish of cilantro, scallions, and garlic, and seized the sauced pig trotter beneath. The surface of the trotter was encrusted with a thick layer of seasoning, completely obscuring its original color, leaving only a glimpse of the condiment-clad morsel. In the natural light, it exhibited a dark green hue, interspersed with yellow and red tones. However, the aroma was enticing, deceptively so. With eager anticipation, the young man placed the pig trotter in his mouth and took a hearty bite. As he chewed, the spark of excitement in his eyes gradually faded, replaced by confusion, disappointment, and numbness. The flavor was rather mundane. While the pig trotter was not inedible, it certainly could not be deemed exceptional, especially with so much seasoning involved. The heavy oil and salt obscure all the imperfections in detail. Coupled with the numbing sensation induced by the chili, one bite renders the taste buds incapacitated, making it exceedingly difficult to discern any unpleasantness. However, it certainly cannot be deemed delicious. One could only say that the flavor of these pig trotters resembles that of the majority of takeout from various establishments. Unremarkable, neither commendable nor condemnable. Chapter 11. The terrifying nature of gourmet delicacies. The texture of these trotters is disproportionately inferior to their aromatic allure. While the nose elevates expectations, the tongue finds the flavor merely mediocre. The nose and tongue engage in a stalemate, each refusing to yield. The eyes wish to mediate, yet they provide no useful information. Promptly ousted from the discussion, consuming these trotters leaves the diner's mind in a state of paralysis, devoid of joy or sorrow. The young man can only chew and swallow in a dazed manner, as if fulfilling an obligation. From his expression, Han Xiaomei discerned no semblance of satisfaction. Consequently, she concluded that these trotters were unequivocally unappetizing. She decisively grasped her colleague's hand. This place is not suitable. Let us seek out that stall from lunchtime. Her colleague, having noticed the young man's disillusioned demeanor, nodded in agreement. All right, let us go explore. In the next moment, Han Xiaomei transformed into a hound, sniffing the air. She detected a faint yet familiar aroma. She was certain that Xiaolon was nearby, and she was determined to find him. Meanwhile, Xiaolon feigned interest in his phone while discreetly observing those around him. His device displayed photographs of suspects sent by old Liu. In addition to searching for suspects, Xiaolon remained vigilant for any other suspicious individuals. Capturing one or two petty thieves would allow him to complete the time-sensitive task assigned by the system. Just as he was scanning the area, a jubilant voice suddenly echoed from above. Boss, I finally found you. Why have you taken down your sign? This stall is far too inconspicuous. Xiaolon looked up to see a familiar face, the very first female customer to patronize his stall. Why is she back? Didn't she mention a limit of 2 per day? Boss, I brought a few new customers with me. Considering my enthusiastic promotion, could you possibly sell me a few more trotters? More new customers? Xiaolon felt no joy at this. However, there was no reason to greet guests with a sour face. The trotters would certainly be sold, as long as they didn't run out too quickly. Earlier, he had maintained a low profile, and the stall had seen little traffic, ensuring a sufficient stock. Thus, Xiaolon managed a faint smile. I can only sell you one extra. Young lady, don't just think about how pig trotters can replenish collagen. Consuming too many could lead to high blood lipids and cholesterol. The daily limit of 2 per person is also for your health. Upon hearing this, Han Xiaomei chuckled, pleased that she could purchase an additional one after her relentless pursuit. All right, then I'll take 4. 4? Xiaolon was taken aback. Did this girl not comprehend? He could only sell her one more. Han Xiaomei cheerfully counted on her fingers. Each person is limited to 2 purchases. And my sisters have already mentioned they only want 1. I will take all their remaining quotas, coupled with the additional 1 you are offering me. I intend to buy 4. Upon hearing this, her colleagues were astonished, their eyes wide with disbelief. They quickly pulled Han Xiaomei aside and whispered, Didn't you say these pig trotters cost 80 yuan per pound? Buying 4 at once would cost you 300 to 400 yuan. Have you won the lottery? Xiaomei, be rational. That money could suffice for an entire day at a high-end buffet. It's not worth it for a street vendor's fare. Indeed, it hardly seemed justifiable. However, the aroma wafting through the air was utterly irresistible. As several of them debated, a sudden gust of fragrance enveloped them, leaving their tongues in a whirl. Not just they, but all the vendors and customers within a 5-meter radius donned expressions of shock, eagerly gazing towards Xiaolan's stall. The secret of Xiao Lan's pot of treasures could no longer be concealed. As the lid was completely lifted, the rich, savory scent of the braised pig trotters burst forth. Having simmered for an entire afternoon, now transformed into its full glory. Its allure had exponentially intensified compared to the earlier offerings. Those standing nearby were unable to resist. And even stray dogs rummaging through trash bins several streets away perked up at the delightful scent. The ones most affected were the young ladies lingering at the stall. Their mouths agape in a daze, attempting to speak, yet rendered utterly speechless. The aroma swirled in their minds like a whirlwind, leaving them in a state of blissful emptiness. When they finally regained their senses at the sound of the lid snapping shut, they realized their mouths were slightly moist, and their clothes bore small damp patches. It was not just them who lost composure. The uncle selling fried rice ahead, who had been tossing his pan with flair, now found his rice scattered all over the ground, the pan still clutched in his hand. The young man behind him selling skewers was fixated on Xiao Lan's stall, oblivious to the flames erupting from his own grill, extinguished only when his drool dripped down to douse the fire. A glance around revealed a chaotic scene among the vendors who caught a whiff of the enticing aroma. Strangely, none of their customers alerted them to the disarray, for the patrons were equally entranced, their eyes glazed over. The potency of gourmet cuisine was indeed formidable. After weighing the items, the total came to 365 yuan for 4. Xiao Lan swiftly retrieved the braised pig trotters and sealed the warming container, hoping to mitigate the captivating effect. Yet, it was too late. Just as he finished packaging, he looked up, nearly stumbling in shock. Countless customers had converged from various stalls, each face brimming with curiosity, urgency, desire, and fervor. The scene resembled a cinematic portrayal of a city besieged by zombies. A surge of impulse to flee on a tricycle surged within Xiao Lan, but he restrained himself. What are you selling, boss? It smells divine. Boss, how much do you sell these pig trotters for? I'll take a serving. Boss, I want one too. Me too. As more and more people gathered around, it became apparent that if things continued this way, Xiao Lan's pot of meat would be sold out in mere moments. He quickly declared the price, attempting to deter the crowd with a high figure. Braised pig trotters, 80 yuan per gene, limited to 1 per person. Please line up in an orderly fashion if you wish to purchase. 80. The stall ahead is already selling at 45 per gene, and yours is 80. That's exorbitant. Upon hearing this, some who had merely come to watch dispersed, intimidated by the steep price. They had not even caught a whiff of the aroma. But seeing the crowd gathered, they simply wanted to join in. Once they heard the price, they scattered like leaves in the wind. Seeing his tactic work, Xiao Lan felt a fleeting joy, but it was swiftly interrupted by protests from Han Xiaomei and her colleagues. Boss, you previously limited us to 2. Why has it changed to 1 now? Yes, you can't do that. You promised us 2 when we arrived. You must keep your word. Xiao Lan quickly lowered his voice. What was said earlier is in the past, now is now. The crowd has grown, hasn't it? How about this? You may each have 2, while others are limited to 1. And what about tomorrow? Resolutely, Xiao Lan decided that limiting to 1 would prolong the sales. 1. From now on, it will be 1 per person each day. Chapter 12. I want that. Mom, buy me that. This plea caused the brows of several female colleagues to furrow. Caught in a web of indecision, they had previously given up their chance for another pig trotter to Xiaomei, unaware of its true allure. Now enlightened, they lamented, Xiaomei? I'm sorry, but I want to. Upon sensing their change of heart, Han Xiaomei swiftly completed her payment. Boss, I've already paid. I'm in a rush to get back to work. I'll pack it myself. No need for your help. With that, Han Xiaomei deftly poured 4 pig trotters into a plastic bag. Without time to portion them into takeout containers, she grabbed the bag and ran. Her urgency, as if fearing the trotters would vanish, left onlookers astonished. Her few companions were left in disbelief at her swift actions, feeling powerless in their frustration. They could only blame themselves for previously deeming the trotters too expensive, believing that a roadside stall could not justify such a price, considering even one a folly. Now, having caught the scent of the freshly prepared braised trotters, they realized that the taste they had sampled in the office was merely a fraction of the true delight. Indeed, it was less than a third of the flavor. Regret washed over them. However, they were relieved they could still purchase 1. The trotters would surely become a sensation. And with more people tomorrow, who knew if they would even be able to buy 1? As Xiao Lan lifted the pot lid once more to serve the trotters to a few young ladies, he dared not look at their reactions. He had done all he could. If others wished to buy, he could not refuse. The young ladies, each with their carefully packed trotters, scanned their payments and left together. No sooner had they departed than a throng descended upon him. Boss, we want 1. I want 1 too. Xiao Lan looked up to find a long, winding queue stretching before him. So many people are eager to purchase, and Xiao Lan finds it impractical to cover the pot after each serving. Thus, she opts to leave it completely open. The length of the queue grows in tandem with the wafting aroma. Soon, the delightful scent reaches the vicinity of the braised meat vendor. What is that fragrance? It is so enticing. Ah, how delightful. Where is it coming from? The individuals at the front of the line express their astonishment. Those further back begin to murmur amongst themselves. The first customer has already completed their transaction and is about to receive their pig trotter from the vendor. Yet, as an enticing gust of fragrance envelopes him, he momentarily loses focus. He even forgets to extend his hand to accept the carefully packaged trotter. Behind him, no one is urging him on. The vendor notices the unusual behavior but thinks little of it, merely prompting, "Your pig trotter is ready." The called customer, as if awakening from a dream, hastily takes the plastic bag offered by the vendor. However, his neck remains craned, as if searching for something elusive. "Next, how many would you like?" The subsequent customer hesitantly responds, "I'll take 2, please." Initially intending to buy 2 trotters, the alluring and rich aroma suddenly alters his mind. He wishes to save some space in his stomach, hoping to indulge in something else. Observing the second customer also craning their neck, seemingly searching for something, the vendor begins to sense that something is amiss. Yet, he cannot pinpoint what exactly it is. In front of him are several pots of meticulously crafted pig trotters, and the overwhelming scent has dulled his own sense of smell. Even if he were not dulled, the plethora of pungent spices he has used has coated his nasal passages, rendering his olfactory senses nearly obsolete. The third customer, a young woman, follows in the footsteps of the second. As her turn approaches, she hesitates. A peculiar thought crosses her mind. The pig trotters before her do not appear as appetizing as they once did. Previously, the scent had tantalized her to the extent that she was willing to endure the long wait. Yet now, a new fragrance drifts through the air, more unique and intense than that of the trotters. This aroma seems to awaken her senses, revealing a hint of cheap artificiality in the pig trotters before her. As the saying goes, once you enter a room filled with orchids, you no longer notice their fragrance. Yet in a fish market, the stench becomes apparent. Once one's nose becomes accustomed to superior scents, it raises the threshold for what is deemed pleasant, rendering the cheap compounds distinctly inferior. Unbeknownst to the vendor, the customer's perceptions have shifted. "How many would you like?" he inquires, his hands ceaselessly busy. To his astonishment, the young woman suddenly shakes her head, saying, "I'm sorry. I've changed my mind." With that, she slips away from the queue. This leaves the vendor bewildered. Having waited so long, how could she decide against the purchase? Did she suddenly find it too expensive? Never mind, there are still plenty of other customers. As he turns his gaze away, an even more surprising scene unfolds before him. One by one, people in the queue begin to leave. "Why aren't they buying anymore?" the vendor murmured, casting a furtive glance at the open warming bucket before him. Had the patrons discovered something amiss with his pig trotters? Was there a cockroach or perhaps a cigarette butt? Had he forgotten to remove the dishcloth used for washing pots? He quickly scanned the area, finding no evidence of such issues. Yet, the number of departing customers continued to rise. When the exodus reached a point that unsettled the vendor, he anxiously called out, Hey, why the sudden change of heart?" A benevolent customer replied, "Perhaps it's the aroma of the pig trotters from the other stall wafting over. It's simply irresistible. I've seen the line there. It's quite lengthy. I can't bear to wait any longer, so I'll purchase from you." This was the reason some remained. They were simply too lazy to queue anew from the back. No sooner had the words left his mouth than a sharp wail from a child pierced the air. Turning to see, it was the child of the lady selling water dumplings next door, crying inconsolably. He tossed his homework to the ground, pointing at a fellow patron's food, and cried, "I want that. Mom, buy me that. It smells so good." The lady was unyielding, slapping her child gently, always thinking about food. "You're dreaming if you think you can have the pig trotters at $80 a pound." The child, mouth agape in protest, wailed, "What? Don't I have meat at home? Am I starving you? Enough of the crying. I will make you something when we get home. The pig trotters you buy yourself are cheaper." No. Wah. Yours don't taste good. I want to eat what that big brother is having." The young man gnawing on a pig trotter felt the weight of the child's gaze. He was embarrassed. He hadn't meant to tempt the child. As a food lover, he often couldn't resist devouring his purchases immediately rather than waiting to return home. He had eaten in front of this child many times before, yet the boy had never seemed to take notice. Little did he anticipate that today he would provoke such a reaction. Chapter 13. Customers are like an unending horde of zombies, arriving one after another. This young man had previously purchased a pig trotter from the vendor, but it had left him feeling indifferent, even nauseated after finishing it. One pig trotter had filled him to a point where he felt he could go a month without meat. However, he was soon drawn to another stall selling braised pig trotters and found himself unable to resist buying another. This time, the experience was nothing short of extraordinary. His taste buds, once dormant, seemed to awaken with fervor. The flavor that graced his palate was far more delightful than the aroma that had enticed him. For the first time, his mouth and nose were in perfect harmony, and his vision was no longer obscured. The newly purchased pig trotter was not overwhelmed by seasonings. It was even packaged separately. The pig skin gleamed with an amber hue, and the meat's texture was distinctly visible, the sinews and flesh apparent. As he bit into it, a satisfied groan escaped his throat, a sound that was both a sigh of pleasure and a lament of his long-neglected appetite. His stomach had been deprived of such divine offerings for far too long. Over the years, it seems as though life has been a relentless accumulation of refuse. The young man appears so blissful that his pores seem to have relaxed in sheer delight. His entire visage radiates a sense of indulgence, and his hair stands on end, visibly defying gravity. He could scarcely fathom that his exuberant display could provoke such salivation in those around him, particularly among the children who are driven to madness by desire. Is it not curious that the essence of life unfolds with so few spectators? Yet, everyone seems to be fixated on him. Embarrassment aside, he finds himself unable to cease. Turning his back to devour voraciously, refraining from smacking his lips is his utmost restraint. Amidst the desperate wails of children, the line before the vendor of braised delicacies grows longer. Anyone with eyes can discern that the pig trotter cradled by the young man is of a different caliber than the ones drenched in seasonings by the vendor. The disparity is unmistakable, with a fragrance that speaks of a superior quality. Observing the young man's ecstatic expression, one can only wonder at the extraordinary delectability of such fare. Were it an act, it would surely rival the performance of an Oscar-winning thespian. Yet, the price of 80 yuan per jean seems exorbitant. Nevertheless, they are already contemplating the purchase of the pig trotters priced at 45 yuan per jean. What does a little extra expense matter? This exemplifies the psychological principle known as the foot-in-the-door phenomenon. Once individuals surmount one psychological threshold, they find it considerably easier to breach a subsequent, higher barrier. The vendor, oblivious to the implications of his actions, unwittingly crafted a beautiful garment for others. Alas, why is everyone leaving? Don't go. The vendor, witnessing his customers disperse like a swarm, is filled with anxiety. He had prepared 6 or 7 batches of pig trotters. Previously, he had imposed purchase limits and had only managed to sell 2 batches, leaving him with an excess that poses a dilemma. Meanwhile, Xiaolan is drenched in sweat from the mounting pressure. The influx of customers resembles an unending horde of zombies from a film, relentlessly approaching. Boss, please weigh me one. The largest. With narrowed eyes, Xiaolan, employing the detective instincts inherited from the original owner, keenly senses something amiss. Didn't you just purchase? Why are you back? The man, visibly flustered, casts furtive glances yet defiantly retorts, no. I've been in line for ages, it's finally my turn. Xiaolan's gaze is piercing. Though you've wiped your mouth clean, the scent of pig trotter lingers upon your words. The limit is 1 per customer. I cannot bend the rules. Next. Wait please. The man, now desperate, clings to the stall and implores, boss, you can't refuse a customer like this. I've waited so long in line, just sell me one more. I devoured the last one too quickly, and didn't he truly savor the flavor? Xiaolan is no stranger to such customers. Earlier, a wide-eyed girl had pouted and whimpered for another, yet he had denied her. What chance does this rugged man have? I'm sorry, but these are my rules. There are many waiting behind. Selling one more would mean one less for them. The man clenches his jaw. How about this? I'll pay more. Just give me one, and I'll add an extra 30 yuan. What do you say? Xiaolan shakes his head resolutely. Once a demand is made, others will inevitably follow suit. Within mere minutes, the pig trotters were devoured. How could he afford to delay even slightly? Waiting for the suspect to appear? He still had a mission to complete, aspiring to ascend the ranks through the system. Moreover, despite the captain's assurance that Xiaolan would manage the earnings from her stall independently, should the profits become substantial, it would no longer be appropriate. As a member of the establishment, he was bound by regulations that prohibited engaging in business. A small profit might be deemed a token of labor, but a significant gain would be considered a severance payment. He had no desire to relinquish his position as a police officer. Rules were rules. Next, please. The man, wishing to continue his discourse, found himself met with protests from those behind him and had no choice but to leave in disgrace. His departure extinguished the hopes of many who shared similar intentions, leading them to regretfully exit the line. As they walked away, they couldn't help but murmur. The delicacies were indeed delightful, yet the peculiar regulations were undeniably strange. How could a roadside stall possess such odd rules? Indeed, if sales were unrestricted, a few of them could easily consume an entire bucket, rather than laboriously selling them one by one. Why was he so intent on finishing quickly? Wouldn't it be better to sell out and return home for some rest? These conversations lingered in the air as they departed, falling upon the ears of the braised delicacies vendor with an almost jarring resonance. Not long ago, a lengthy queue had formed before his stall, leaving him breathless with activity. And now, in a short span, the crowd had dissipated, leaving him to gaze at the numerous buckets of meat in disbelief. He watched as the disgruntled patron strolled past his stall, showing no inclination to pause. The vendor hastily called out, "Come and see. Freshly prepared braised pig trotters. No purchase limits, just 45 per pound. Take some home to enjoy with your drinks." The few individuals cast a glance at his stall, curled their lips in disdain, and departed without uttering a word. In their silence, they conveyed volumes. Their disdain was palpable, leaving the vendor fuming. He refused to accept this affront. His pig trotters were no less than anyone else's. He was determined to witness the situation for himself, delegating the oversight of his stall to a neighboring vendor. The braised delicacies seller stealthily approached Xiaolan's stall. As he traversed the length of the queue, his irritation grew. These were once his customers. The closer he drew, the more intoxicating the aroma became. He sensed his mouth watering uncontrollably, akin to a faulty faucet. Not wishing to lose face in front of Xiaolan, he carefully maneuvered to her rear. From a distance, he overheard, "Don't leave. Let go. If you don't release me, I won't let go." At first glance, it seemed Xiaolan was embroiled in a dispute with a customer. A throng of people surrounded her stall, tugging and pointing. The braised delicacies vendor's eyes sparkled with intrigue. Could it be that something had gone awry with Xiaolan's pig trotters, prompting someone to confront her? With a sense of schadenfreude, he quickened his pace to join the fray. Chapter 14. Let me go, I've truly sold out. As soon as I squeezed into the crowd, I heard Xiaolan's voice filled with resignation. Alas, it's all sold out. Truly gone. Not a single piece left. Come back tomorrow to buy? A group of youths clung tightly to Xiaolan's tricycle, their eyes gleaming with eagerness, regardless of gender. The meat is gone. Can you sell us the marinade? What is your price, boss? Xiaolan was rendered speechless. These folks were insatiable. Oh, I can't sell the marinade. It's simply not for sale. But why not? How about you sell it at half the price of the pig trotters, 40 yuan per pound? Boss, weigh me a pound. As they spoke, the crowd began to stir, eager to lift the lid and engage in a form of strong-arm bargaining. Xiaolan quickly wrapped her arms around the two insulated containers in front of her, fearing they might be snatched away in an instant. I can't sell it, truly can't. This pot of marinade is worth more than the meat. Disperse, please disperse. Upon hearing this, the crowd realized that hope was lost. Disappointment washed over them. Yet they remained reluctant to leave. Do you have a phone number? Do you have WeChat? Is there a fan group? When will you set up again? Please send a message in the group. I want some too. The vendor of the marinated delicacies, upon hearing this, felt as if he had swallowed a dozen lemons. The sourness overwhelming. It was a classic case of drought and flood. He had 5 or 6 pots of meat that no one desired, while here, the marinade was in high demand. His marinade could sell for 10 yuan, or even 5 yuan per pound. Why was no one buying from him? An idea struck the vendor. He quickly raised his voice, blending into the crowd. There's another stall selling pig trotters ahead. You can buy there. They're really delicious. However, the response he received pierced his heart like a dagger. No way. Even dogs wouldn't eat that stuff. Exactly, 6 tails of it are just seasoning. Only a fool would buy that. Having tasted truly delectable pig trotters, they could no longer stomach inferior offerings. The vendor clutched his battered heart, donned a mask of despair, and quietly withdrew from the crowd. What to do with the 6 or 7 buckets of unsold trotters? Was he to consume them all himself? After being pressured to establish a fan group on the spot, Xiaolan finally managed to escape the encirclement. The customers were simply too enthusiastic, overwhelming her. Although she yearned to stay and monitor the situation, lingering too long might lead the insatiable customers to slaughter a pig on site, demanding she prepare the meat for her marinade. Reluctantly, she had to make her exit. Fortunately, the account she used to create the fan group was a secondary one, ensuring her daily life remained unaffected. Otherwise, she feared the constant notifications would be suffocating. It was best to take the opportunity to explore other areas, hoping to catch some petty thieves and complete her system tasks. Xiaolan called her captain, Old Lu, to report her situation. I was unprepared last night. We ran out of ingredients too quickly. After work, I'll go to the market to buy more pig trotters so I can sell double tomorrow. Old Lu, reminiscing about the delightful aroma of the pig trotters. Couldn't he help but swallow hard? The allure of the fragrant pig's trotters is understandable, leading to swift sales. Immediately, with a sense of reason, I suggested. No need to wait until the end of the workday. You may proceed to the market early, as this is also part of our duties. Coincidentally, I was also preparing for the return of the other 3. Upon reflection, I realized this matter was not urgent. Our operation is a joint effort with the Smuggling Enforcement Agency. We cannot behave like a haphazard team, engaging in trivial skirmishes and losing our composure over minor achievements. Moreover, Team 1 had just apprehended some individuals at the electronics factory today, and I surmised that the smugglers would be cautious upon hearing such news. I estimated they would refrain from making any significant moves in the coming days. Thus, it would require your diligence to maintain surveillance without alarming them. Understood. Old Lu vented his frustrations about Team 1 over the phone, feeling somewhat relieved. Just after hanging up, he suddenly heard uproarious laughter emanating from Team 1. His mood swiftly darkened. Had they truly caught a fugitive and were reveling in their triumph? Why the incessant display of pride? He strode over with a stern expression, only to discover that the laughter was not exclusive to Team 1. His own subordinates from Team 2 were joining in. Old Lu's irritation intensified. What sort of decorum is this? Laughing during work hours? The younger officers from Team 1 quickly stifled their laughter, while Team 2 dispersed sheepishly. However, as Old Lu turned away, they could no longer contain themselves. A snicker escaped. What is so amusing? Seeing Old Lu's face darken, everyone hurried to explain. Apologies. We are trained professionals and typically do not laugh, unless provoked. The corners of Old Lu's mouth twitched as he pulled out a chair and sat down. Now, enlighten me on the matter at hand. Let us see if I can maintain my composure. We were reviewing the interrogation records of those 2 factory workers. The fugitive was identified while they were bickering. The reason for their altercation was quite comical. Old Lu, unable to muster a smile, was nonetheless curious about how this seemingly mundane situation had escalated, and what was the cause of their fight. One had indulged in pig's trotters during lunch and had been smacking his lips throughout the afternoon. Oh, and then what happened? The other, catching a whiff, assumed he was still eating and inquired if he could have a taste. Naturally, he could not oblige, and thus, a quarrel ensued. Old Lu sensed something amiss. During their argument, being in close proximity, and with the enticing aroma of pigs' trotters lingering, one leaned in for a sniff and inadvertently kissed the other. Following this, they began to fight. Online, rumors circulated that their clash was due to a romantic dispute, yet when they confessed the truth, no one believed them. As the officers recounted the absurdity, they struggled to suppress their laughter, their bodies trembling with mirth. Thus, they would rather be labeled as mutual combatants than have the police issue a public explanation of the events. Old Lou fought to suppress his laughter, yet the twitching of his facial muscles betrayed his amusement. Ahem. Ha ha ahem ahem. Ha 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 ahem ahem. Through a series of coughs, Old Lou managed to conceal his laughter. It's not all that funny. The youth truly lacked composure. He chortled, standing up and awkwardly covering his mouth. Dismissed. Everyone disperse. As the crowd scattered, Old Lou nonchalantly returned to his office, maintaining an air of indifference. Shutting the door, the earth-shattering laughter reverberated, causing dust to rain down from the ceiling. Once Old Lou had laughed enough, he suddenly realized something was amiss. Wait a moment, pork trotter. If he remembered correctly, wasn't it Xiao Lan who was selling pork trotters today? Could it be that the one who truly ensnared the fugitive was Xiao Lan? In an instant, Old Lou felt both exasperated and amused. The very people under his command had unwittingly made a fool of themselves for a team. This raised a pressing question. Just how delectable could Xiao Lan's pork trotters be to instigate such a chain reaction? No, he must procure some tomorrow to taste. After all, it was all for the sake of the case. Indeed, for the case. Chapter 15. Is there no sense of public morality left when it smells this enticing? Xiao Lan had wandered through the market 4 or 5 times, yet he failed to uncover a single criminal. He even considered settling for a petty vendor selling fake scales. But none were to be found. Perhaps it was not a lack of such individuals, but rather his investigative skills were insufficient. As a mere chef, what did he know of apprehending wrongdoers? Time was still on his side. It seemed the time-limited task was hopeless. So he would wait for the system to issue the next assignment. Having come to terms with this, Xiao Lan mounted his tricycle, laden with 80 pounds of fresh pork trotters, and departed. Little did he know that the vendors at the market were astute, adept at discerning a person's expertise from their choice of ingredients and demeanor. Only a fool would attempt to deceive an expert. Upon returning to his rented, dilapidated building, Xiao Lan took a moment to ensure no one was around before swiftly entering and shutting the door. Fortunately, he had finished work early, and his neighbors had yet to return. Otherwise, he would undoubtedly face inquiries about what he had been cooking the previous night, possibly even being reproached for depriving them of a good night's sleep. Regrettably, tonight would also leave them restless. 80 pounds of pork trotters, double the amount from last night, would require even more time to cook. However, as he already had the marinade prepared, he could save half the process. Xiao Lan meticulously cleaned each pork trotter, scrubbing them to a pristine white. Fresh trotters bore little of the fishy odor. After rinsing away the blood, only a faint aroma of meat remained. Piled in a stainless steel basin, they resembled a snowy mountain. The tips of the trotters glowed faintly red, like the last rays of the setting sun casting a warm light on the snowy peak. These were the finest trotters available at the market. Yet Xiao Lan felt slightly dissatisfied. According to his personal preference, he favored the bamboo-scented pig. This breed thrived on a diet of bamboo, spring water, grass, wild fruits, and mountain vegetables, imparting a natural fragrance of bamboo to the meat, making it more tender and flavorful. After washing, Xiao Lan chopped the trotters. Each cut appeared casual, yet was executed with precision. He deftly avoided the bones, slicing along the grain of the muscle. With minimal effort, he split them apart. In this old building with poor sound insulation, the chopping did not sound harsh. Instead, it possessed a rhythmic cadence. To prevent them from being snatched up too quickly, Xiao Lan deliberately chopped the trotters into smaller pieces. This would sacrifice some texture, but the richer marinade would compensate for that. The trotters were placed in cold water, accompanied by ginger and scallions, to blanch away the blood. Before bringing the pig trotters to a boil, remove them and immerse them in a pre-prepared ice water bath to swiftly lower their temperature. This step enhances the crispness of the pig's skin and tendons, resulting in a firmer texture. Subsequently, drain the water and transfer the trotters into a pot of preheated marinade. Reintroduce the seasoning and cover the pot. The next crucial step involves blocking the door with ice. The trotters must be allowed to braise until the following noon. During this time, the high temperature will extract the fat from within the trotters, initiating the Maillard reaction and releasing an enticing aroma. Concurrently, the spices in the marinade will penetrate the trotters more rapidly under pressure, enriching the complexity of the flavors. If he fails to secure the door tonight, the entire pot of trotters, along with the broth, will be devoured by the entire neighborhood, potentially leaving nothing behind. Once he ensures the door is firmly blocked, Xiao Lan clasps his hands together, murmuring an apology. He then ungraciously turns on the range hood, allowing the fragrant aroma to waft through the room. His intention is not to tempt everyone, but rather to ensure safety. The old house lacks proper ventilation, and to avoid carbon monoxide poisoning, he must take such measures. As dusk descends, more and more workers return home. Within a 5-mile radius centered around Xiao Lan's residence, anyone who steps into this area instinctively exclaims, "What on earth smells so divine?" This tantalizing aroma, perceived but unattainable, serves as a torment for the hungry workers. After a long day, Their rationality has long since dissipated. They roam about like zombies, heads held high in search of the source of the delectable scent, desperately questioning where it comes from and which establishment offers such culinary delights. Their unsatisfied stomachs, akin to tiny fists, thrash about within them, growling in protest. Unable to escape their hunger, they scurry around, devouring whatever they can find along the roadside. Meanwhile, Xiaolan, the cause of this culinary chaos, is blissfully unaware in the bathroom, ignoring the persistent knocking at the door. Neighbors have returned, with children unable to focus on their homework, crying out in desperation as parents scold them. Xiaolan is oblivious to the turmoil outside, wholly focused on his cleansing ritual. Upon finishing, he takes a whiff of his arm, his face falling into despair. No matter how many times he washes, he cannot rid himself of the lingering scent of pig trotters. The poorly ventilated space resembles a large steamer, saturating the air with rich aromas that thoroughly permeate Xiaolan. Fortunately, he does not have to report to the police station tomorrow. He will head directly to the market instead, or else his colleagues might very well devour him. Just as he considers returning to the bathroom, he suddenly notices a steady stream of money being slipped beneath the door. A neighbor outside cries out in desperation. "Take your money. Just give me my braised meat. I can't hold out any longer. I'll pay, just give it to me. Is anyone inside? If you don't respond, I'll break down your door." As the enticing aroma wafted through the air, Xiaolan, startled, retreated into the bathroom, daring not to utter a sound, only cautiously using a clothes rod to push money through the door's crack. His meager portion of pig trotters was a mere morsel amidst a ravenous crowd. It was not scarcity that troubled him, but the inequity of distribution. Either everyone would share, or no one should partake. After all, they were all neighbors. He feared that those unable to secure a share might lose their sanity and suddenly find Xiaolan's allure irresistible, rushing forth to devour him. Meanwhile, within the electronic factory complex, Wang Defa was laboring overtime. As a supervisor, his daily routine consisted of playing on his phone while overseeing the ordinary employees' extended hours. Others perceived his phone engagement as a sign of leisure, oblivious to the exhaustion of his fingers from gaming and the strain on his neck. This job was far too arduous. Had he known, he would have asked his brother-in-law for a more manageable position. The factory was owned by his brother-in-law, after all. Changing roles was merely a trivial matter. He often contemplated the allure of the general manager's position, with its private office and computer, where gaming would be truly comfortable. Regrettably, his brother-in-law was seldom home and rarely visited the company, leaving no opportunity for him to request a transfer. The more Wang Defa pondered, the more his irritation grew. It was all his sister's fault for aging and failing to captivate her husband's affections. Otherwise, would his brother-in-law not return home? He decided to abandon gaming and seek out a charming female subordinate for conversation. With his considerable belly, he strolled toward the packaging room, in search of the little flower who had recently been exchanging flirtatious glances with him. Inside the packaging room, the little flower sat with her legs crossed, munching on sunflower seeds, the sound of cracking echoing as she occasionally directed her female workers to hasten their pace. "Move faster. Why are you so slow? Stop chatting. I can hear someone idling about. If I catch even a whisper, I shall slap that insolent mouth." Her gaze caught sight of a large belly appearing at the door, prompting her to hastily toss aside the seeds and adopt a ladle-like posture. Wang Defa entered the workshop and beheld the little flower poised elegantly, a stark contrast to the weary, disheveled, ordinary workers around her, accentuating her beauty. As he took a few steps forward, he stepped on a pile of sunflower seed shells, instantly adopting a stern expression. "How dare you eat seeds during work hours? Who among you cannot keep still? There are still tasks unfinished, and you only think of slacking off. Do you wish to have your wages docked? Such laziness is truly despicable." After reprimanding them, he turned to the little flower with a softer tone. "You see, managing subordinates requires a firm hand. You, my dear, are simply too gentle." Chapter 16. The delightful pig trotters. Awakening my pure love warrior, the little flower shyly stood up, playfully responding. "Oh, Wang Go, I cannot possibly emulate your assertiveness. You are just too manly." While she feigned distance, her fingers subtly hooked onto the belt around his waist. A little snacking during work is harmless. When everyone is happy, managing talent becomes much easier. Wang Defa, feeling her playful touch, experienced an immediate swell of pride within him. Regardless of their feelings, should anyone refuse to comply, feel free to speak with me. I will promptly dismiss them. Since you have been appointed team leader, Brother Wang will undoubtedly support you. Excellent. Thank you, Brother Wang. After saying this, Xiaohua suddenly retrieved an item wrapped in a plastic bag from her purse and placed it into Wang Defa's hands. "By the way, Brother Wang, there's a vendor selling pig trotters at the West Gate today, and their business is thriving. The queue was exceptionally long, with a purchase limit of 1. I managed to buy one after much effort, especially for you." With a beauty before him, Wang Defa's thoughts wandered, hardly paying attention to the pig trotter. He merely felt its warmth in his hand, its softness reminiscent of Xiaohua's delicate touch. "A purchase limit of 1, and yet you offer it to me. Does that not mean you will go without? Perhaps we could find a place to share it together?" Wang Defa's words were laced with ambiguous implications, entirely disregarding the presence of so many others. However, Xiaohua appeared oblivious, responding with a charming smile. Whether I eat or not is of little consequence. Brother Wang, you manage so many people daily, burdened with countless responsibilities. Look how you've grown thin. You must eat more to regain your strength. The better you feel, the more prosperous the company will become. The female workers nearby seemed to feign ignorance, their expressions stoic, yet inwardly they had already berated this couple countless times. This pair of shameless individuals, each more unscrupulous than the other. The claim of having queued for the trotter is clearly a ruse, gifted by her various suitors. There are several more in that bag. Wang Defa has grown as corpulent as a pig, yet he dares to claim he has slimmed down. How absurd. To suggest he eat a pig trotter is akin to inciting cannibalism among his own kind. Work is already tedious, and now he expects us to play along with this farce. How exasperating. Wang Defa gazed at Xiaohua's exquisite visage, enchanted by her melodious words, his heart increasingly restless. You truly understand the importance of the company. A girl as perceptive and sensible as you deserves a promotion without question. I wish to hear about your career aspirations. Join me for a moment outside, and we shall discuss it in detail. Wang Defa nearly implied that Xiaohua accompany him for something more intimate. Xiaohua, understanding his insinuation, softly declined. Brother Wang, I heard that the boss will be visiting tonight. I recall you mentioning you had matters to discuss with him. Your priorities are more pressing. Mine can wait. This remark jolted Wang Defa. Since the brother-in-law was coming to the factory, he must meet him first. Once the brother-in-law appointed him as general manager. With a private office, there would be no need to find a place for discussions. He could converse freely behind closed doors. Thus, he changed his approach. I do indeed have important matters to discuss with the brother-in-law. We shall postpone your matters for another day. Very well. As they parted, Wang Defa slyly wrapped his arm around Xiaohua's waist, giving her a firm squeeze before hastily departing. The moment he exited the factory, he made a beeline for the boss's office. The brother-in-law seldom visited. He must seize this opportunity for a career change. Yet, it was indeed strange. How was it that he had not heard of the brother-in-law's impending visit, while Xiaohua seemed to be aware? He waited at the door for quite some time. Yet he still did not catch sight of the brother-in-law. Wang Defa hurried back to inquire with Xiaohua about the source of her information and its accuracy. Before he even approached, he was greeted by the melodious sound of her laughter, mingled with the indistinct murmur of a man's voice. There was also a soft, teasing exclamation from a woman. Oh, how naughty. A wave of anger surged through Wang Defa as he advanced with the intention of confronting the man. However, upon catching a glimpse of the man's figure, he quickly concealed himself by the doorway. His brother-in-law. What was he doing here? And why was he so audaciously groping Xiaohua? From his vantage point by the door, the scene was all too clear. The brother-in-law's brazen hands had yet to leave her side, displaying an arrogance that left Wang Defa seething. How could he so shamelessly touch her in front of everyone? It was infuriating, especially considering that his previous crush had been snatched away by his boss before he had the chance to act, leaving him to bribe her into silence afterward, money he had yet to see reimbursed by his brother-in-law. Now, having made the first move with Xiaohua, and with her reciprocating his interest, it felt utterly unjust for his brother-in-law to intrude upon their budding connection. In a fit of rage, he resolved to leave quietly, pretending he had never been there, and returned to wait outside the boss's office. Others may have thought him foolish, but he knew better. The woman was already stolen, and he could not afford to lose his position as general manager. Once he secured that title, he could have as many Zaiwas and Dawas as he desired. Yet, despite his clarity of thought, the biting northern wind and swirling snow brought an unshakable sense of discomfort. After enduring a blow to his pride, he found himself craving solace in food. Suddenly, he remembered the forgotten pig trotter he had stashed away. Retrieving it from his bag, he carefully unwrapped the layers of plastic and thermal insulation. With each layer peeled away, warmth radiated from the trotter, revealing it to be still warm. Once fully unveiled, an intoxicating aroma burst forth, reminiscent of a long-buried treasure. The scent struck him like a blow, dazzling his senses and igniting a fervent passion within him. In the midst of this fragrant delight, he felt an overwhelming affection swell within him, dispelling his anguish and filling the void in his heart. It was simply divine. How could something so exquisite exist in this world? Without needing to taste it, both his stomach and heart were utterly captivated. He was suddenly reminded of the first time he held Xiaohua's hand. The warmth, the softness, the fragrance. In a daze, he imagined that what he held was not a pig trotter, but rather Xiaohua's delicate, fair hand. Initially, his interest in her had been merely physical, believing that a woman like her was only after promotion and salary increases. But now, confronted with the irresistible allure of the trotter, he realized the profound and potent attraction it possessed. Xiaohua, however, could not bear to take a single bite, reserving it solely for herself. What is this? It is love. It is true love. In an instant, 2 streams of tears fell from Wang Defa's round, pig-like face. There are many beauties in this world, yet few are blind enough to fall in love with him. Missing this opportunity might mean waiting for another lifetime. Brother-in-law, let the bird remain. He immediately transformed into a pure-hearted warrior, shouting as he raced back along the path he had come. Chapter 17. Do not blame me for being ruthless in retrieving my pig's hoof. What Wang Defa did not know was that shortly after his departure, Xiaohua produced another sealed package containing a pig's hoof and handed it to the boss. uttering the same words. The boss was deeply moved and decided to offer Xiaohua a promotion opportunity. He invited her to a place to enjoy the pig's hoof together while discussing her career plans. The difference was that Xiaohua readily accepted. When Wang Defa located his brother-in-law's car in the underground parking lot, he felt a sudden tightening in his chest. The familiar scene filled him with an ominous premonition. The car's engine hummed, suggesting someone was inside, warming themselves. After a moment of observation, he noted that the vehicle was undisturbed, all four wheels stationary. Wang Defa's heart soared. There was still time. Just as he dashed to the side of the car, the window suddenly lowered halfway. A man's hand emerged, brushing off ash before retreating. Wang Defa paused, tears streaming down his face. How could this be? The aftermath was already unfolding. It was too late. Through the partially opened window, he caught sight of Xiaohua reclining inside, her cheeks flushed, wearing a look of post-coital bliss. His heart sank completely. The man smoking in the car turned his head and caught a glimpse of Wang Defa, dropping his cigarette in shock. Who is that? Upon closer inspection, the man recognized the familiar face and sighed in relief. Oh, it's you. You startled me. The man unabashedly lowered the window entirely, leaning out to speak. Defa, since you're here, run to the pharmacy and grab me some blue pills. There's still time. I'll take another round. Wang Defa felt as though his heart was being wrenched apart. As a pure-hearted warrior, he had been reduced to a mere caretaker for replenishing blue pills. He had come to rescue the damsel in distress. Yet, facing his brother-in-law, he felt his resolve wavering. Did Xiaohua also perceive him as inadequate, hence her disdainful gaze? Seeing that Wang Defa had yet to leave, his brother-in-law urged him on. Hurry up. If you don't go now, the pharmacy will close. By the way, you'll need to cover the cost. I'll repay you tomorrow. A double blow. The last time he had been asked to front the money. His brother-in-law had also promised to repay him tomorrow. Yet, day after day, that money had never materialized. To play with the woman he adored and expect him to pay for the blue pills. This was truly heart-wrenching. Wang Defa's hand trembled slightly as he clutched the pig's hoof. His brother-in-law caught a whiff of the familiar aroma, his nose twitching in the air, suddenly noticing the pig's hoof in Wang Defa's hand. His brother-in-law displayed a look of surprise and snatched it away. How did you know I hadn't eaten enough? You even brought me this. This pig's hoof is absolutely delicious. After eating it, I'll feel invigorated. I could eat several more. Just as I was contemplating another one, you delivered it to me. How considerate of my brother-in-law. Wang Defa's already bleeding heart was pierced once more. He hadn't even tasted the pig's trotters, yet others indulged in several servings. The fool is none other than myself. Cursed be it. My brother-in-law is surrounded by beautiful women and even preys upon his own. With company assets exceeding 100 million. He still covets his petty cash. Attending lavish banquets daily, he dares to feast upon my pig's trotters. If you do not spare me, I shall not spare you either. How much can one endure? In a fit of rage, Wang Defa snatched back the pig's trotters and ran away. Hey, what are you doing? His brother-in-law was taken aback. What do you think? You. This time, Wang Defa refused to sulk alone. He sought vengeance. He intended to send his brother-in-law to jail. If it came to it, they would perish together. He pulled out his phone and dialed a 3-digit number. With determination, Wang Defa made the call. Hello, I wish to report. Yongfeng Electronics Company is engaging in fraudulent practices, ostensibly dealing in electronic components. They actually profit through deceitful lending. The operator on the other end of the line widened her eyes in astonishment, instantly alert. Could you elaborate further? How exactly are they committing fraud? Wang Defa, like pouring out beans, revealed all he knew. They pose as a factory hiring workers, specifically targeting older individuals from rural areas, those with little education, or those in urgent need of money. Upon arrival, they confiscate identification cards, with wages withheld until the second payment, deceiving them into believing that they would earn high salaries once regularized. When these workers find themselves financially destitute, they are discreetly referred to illegal online lending platforms. In reality, those lending platforms are operated by Yongfeng Electronics. The primary source of the company's income is lending. Upon hearing this, the operator grasped the significance of the call. To verify its authenticity, she inquired, "How do you know about this? Are you a victim of the loans, or?" Before she could finish, the caller interjected. "I know all too well, because I am the one responsible for recruiting workers. The unscrupulous owner of this company is my brother-in-law. I am fully aware of his misdeeds. Police, hurry and arrest him. Besides lending, he indulges in drinking, gambling, and coercing women. I wish to become a witness against him. I am preparing all the evidence right now. Please come quickly. I will open the door for you." After a brief moment of mental paralysis, the operator promptly reported the information to the command center. The center dispatched police orders to the precinct, which included the station where Xiao Lan was stationed. This time, the task fell to Officer Liu. He was thrilled, recognizing it as a significant case. Liu gathered all the on-duty officers from the second squad and rushed to the electronics park overnight. With a guide, Liu successfully infiltrated the lair, apprehending everyone within. Upon returning for interrogation, every single one was found guilty. The evidence was irrefutable, leaving no room for denial. This was a far greater haul than the first squad had managed. A team captured one suspect, feeling quite proud. However, their rival team apprehended an entire nest. Once the initial excitement faded, Old Lou suddenly sensed something amiss. They had only just embarked on their joint mission with the Smuggling Investigation Bureau to tackle smuggling cases within the electronic park, and there were yet no leads. In less than a day, they had already apprehended a fugitive who had evaded capture for over a decade, alongside a company that, under the guise of recruitment, engaged in illegal lending. It was astonishing that such a small electronic park could harbor so many hidden dangers. Upon reflection, Old Lou surmised that this might be related to the park being newly established. With its development still in its infancy, oversight was inadequate, allowing all manner of nefarious characters to infiltrate. The illegal lending company had not even garnered a single report prior, indicating their adeptness at concealment. They operated cleanly, leaving no incriminating evidence. Yet, one could not help but wonder why the boss's brother-in-law would go so far as to expose the company. Even at the risk of implicating himself, when questioned by the police, the response was utterly astonishing. He stole my pig-s trotters. He stole my pig-s trotters. Once again, it was about pig-s trotters. This marked the second case related to them. Surely, the trotters in question were not those sold by Xiaolon. Old Lou wished to delve deeper, but another shocking piece of news abruptly disrupted the precinct. A grave situation had arisen. The father of our precinct chief had gone missing. What? Is this for real? Chapter 18, Unlocking Points Redemption, A Vengeful Food Cart. Old Lou quickly rose to his feet, admonishing the officer who had relayed the news. You mustn't speak carelessly. Is there any basis for this claim? The officer hastily replied, This is no idle talk. The captain of Team 1 has already received a covert mission to locate him. He has been searching for several hours without success. The old gentleman is frail. The longer he remains outside, the more perilous it becomes. Therefore, the captain instructed me to return and seek assistance. Old Lou inwardly cursed the recklessness of the Team 1 captain. Such a significant matter was being treated as a secret mission. If anything were to go awry, could he bear the responsibility? Old Lou promptly assigned a few individuals to oversee the interrogation while he took others along to commence the search. Please elaborate on how the old gentleman went missing? The officer trailed behind him, panting as he answered. He had been residing in the countryside for retirement. Recently, his health declined, so the chief brought him to the city for medical attention. This evening, upon entering the city, they encountered traffic congestion. When the driver turned his head, the old gentleman was nowhere to be found. Old Lou pressed for more details. How could a perfectly healthy person just vanish? Have you checked the surveillance footage? We reviewed the surveillance along the route and discovered that the old gentleman had opened the car door and walked out on his own. His path led through a downtown village area where surveillance was sparse. He simply disappeared there. Old Lou furrowed his brow, realizing they might have to go door to door to inquire. The officer immediately responded, The captain of Team 1 thinks the same. That's why he sent me to the precinct for support. Meanwhile, at Xiaolan's residence, Ding. Detected a Class B criminal has confessed. Apprehension successful. Reward of 50,000 yuan awarded. Please continue the excellent work. Ding. The time-limited task of assisting in the apprehension of a criminal within 24 hours has been accomplished. The points redemption feature is now officially open. A notification chimes. Bonus of 1,000 points for capturing an A-level fugitive, 500 points for a B-level criminal. You may proceed to the points redemption store to exchange for relevant items. A series of notifications jolted the drowsy Xiaolan awake. The system spoke again. This time, he was certain it was not a figment of his imagination. His phone buzzed with a text message, revealing a transfer of 50,000 yuan into his bank account. Although he was unaware of which criminal had been apprehended, the system assured him of it, and thus it must be true. He pondered the offerings in the points redemption store. With a thought, a translucent blue interface materialized before him, brimming with a dazzling array of products. Genuine Feelings Big Mushroom, 200 points each. Reformed Little Chili, 200 points each. Health Enhancing Little Apple, 500 points each. Bulletproof Macadamia Nuts, 3,000 points each. Was the store exclusively selling ingredients? Yet, the name seemed rather peculiar. As Xiaolan muttered to himself, he continued to browse the merchandise. What was this? He suddenly stumbled upon a unique item, not food, but a vigilant snack cart, priced at 1,000 points. Wasn't that simply a tricycle? It bore little difference from his own. Curious, he explored the detailed description. The vigilant snack cart is quite distinctive, with clear distinctions of affection and aversion. It lights up blue for good people and alerts authorities at the touch of a button for wrongdoers, while the law may have gray areas. In the realm of the snack cart, only red and blue exist. Upon reading this description, Xiaolan felt a surge of desire. Where could he find such a unique snack cart? It was practically a walking criminal detector. However, a dilemma arose. The stall he was assigned was merely a temporary task. After completing this assignment, future missions from his superiors might not entail the same. Purchasing the snack cart would thus hold little significance. Then he reconsidered. Who said that acquiring a tricycle snack cart necessarily meant he had to operate a stall? It could serve as a mode of transportation as well. How cool it would be to ride it to work every day? I'll buy it. Ding. The vigilant snack cart has been redeemed. Remaining points, 500. According to the system's prompt, the snack cart was placed downstairs, complete with a license plate. With 500 points left, he pondered what else to acquire. Xiaolon hesitated between the genuine feelings big mushroom and the reformed little chili. Ultimately, he opted for the health-enhancing little apple. The first two items seemed far from suitable for raw consumption. Health enhancement it would be. Ding. The health-enhancing little apple has been redeemed, remaining points, 0, in an instant. The apple appeared in his hand. Its appearance diverged significantly from that of a typical apple. The shape was irregular, resembling a squished sphere. Its surface was uneven, adorned with an array of creases of varying depths. Xiaolon gazed curiously at the oddly shaped fruit before him. Could this truly not be a devil fruit? Was it genuinely edible? Having already purchased it, he boldly took a bite, intending only a mere taste. Unexpectedly, the apple seemed to sprout legs and burrowed down his throat. With a slurp, it melted in his mouth, rendering him unable to expel it. Soon, he felt a warm sensation in his belly. His body seemed to have undergone some transformation, though he could not quite articulate it. His gaze shifted towards the fridge towering behind the door. Approaching it, he attempted to lift it. Remarkably, the once cumbersome appliance was now effortlessly movable. Wow, this point shop has something special, Xiaolon exclaimed in delight. Out of the corner of his eye, the door suddenly creaked open slightly. It was then that he noticed the latch on the door had somehow been knocked loose. With the fridge no longer obstructing the way, a gust of wind from the corridor easily pushed the door ajar. Xiaolon quickly set down the fridge and reached out to brace the door, but it was too late. The door swung open wide, revealing an elderly man standing outside. Seeing only one person rather than a crowd, Xiaolon exhaled deeply in relief. Scattered on the ground were several crooked bowls, and most absurdly, a few empty buckets with remnants of rice stuck inside. It seemed the neighbors had already indulged in the delightful aroma and had returned home. Or perhaps they were simply short on food and had come to refill their supplies. As for the old man, it was uncertain whether he was merely fortunate to arrive just now or stubbornly awaiting an opportunity. Their eyes met, and at that moment, closing the door would have been impolite. Being neighbors, shooing him away would be rather callous. A few words were in order before sending him on his way. Good evening, sir. What brings you here? Xiaolon greeted softly. The old gentleman looked somewhat unfamiliar, not appearing to be a resident of this building. Perhaps he belonged to the same community. The old man stared vacantly, and as he opened his mouth, a stream of glistening saliva trickled from the corner. Xiaolon furrowed his brow, sensing that the situation was far from simple. This elderly man did not seem particularly bright. Could he be suffering from dementia? Drawn here by the enticing scent of his pork trotters? Sir, are you lost? The old man tightened his lips and refrained from speaking, suddenly thrusting something tightly clutched in his hand into Xiaolan's palm. The corridor was dimly lit, and Xiaolon could not discern what the old man had given him. Only feeling a thick wad, reminiscent of the handwritten telephone directories favored by the older generation. Do you want me to call your family? All right, just a moment. The old man barely managed to utter a muffled sound before a flood of saliva burst forth uncontrollably. The cacophony of his violent coughing echoed throughout the narrow corridor, shaking the entire floor. To make matters worse, it appeared the neighbors had been stirred from their slumber. Faintly, the voices of the neighboring couple reached my ears. Dear, do you hear that noise from next door? Has that young man opened the door? Let me take a look. The sounds of locks being turned followed in succession from both sides. Startled, Xiaolon hastily retreated into the house, ignoring everything else. She attempted to close the door and lock it, only to realize, to her dismay, that the lock was broken. How unfortunate. She had forgotten the lock was faulty. In a flurry, Xiaolon turned to move the refrigerator. Upon glancing back, she was taken aback to see the old man standing right behind her. Startled, she thought, when did this old man enter the house? Hadn't he just been coughing violently moments ago? How could he be so agile? Suddenly, a voice from outside interrupted her thoughts. Dear, doesn't that door look ajar? It certainly does. There's light seeping through the crack, replied her husband. Xiaolan's expression shifted. There was no time to usher the old man out. She quickly braced the refrigerator against the door, pressing her entire weight against it to secure it, finally allowing herself to breathe a sigh of relief. In that moment, she noticed what she was holding. Illuminated by the light within the room, it was not a telephone directory as she had initially thought, but a stack of cash. The bills varied in denomination, 10, 5, and 50 yuan, neatly bound together with a rubber band and folded. What on earth was the old man doing with this money? Surely he wasn't planning to purchase her braised pig trotters? Glancing back, she saw the old man had vanished. Could it have been an illusion? Yet, upon closer inspection, he reappeared in the kitchen, heading straight for the braised pig trotters. His intentions were clear. He meant to pay and collect his meal himself. Xiaolon rushed forward and grasped the old man's arm. Please, don't go in there. The kitchen is dangerous. Sit in the living room. I understand you want the pig trotters. Allow me to fetch them for you. You can wait on the sofa, all right? She coaxed him gently, as one would a child. The kitchen presented hazards, an open flame, and a large iron pot filled with bubbling marinade. Xiaolon was genuinely concerned for his safety. 10 minutes later, the old man sat in the living room, voraciously devouring 3 braised pig trotters, his face smeared with grease. While he savored his meal, Xiaolon found herself in a quandary. What was she to do with this elderly man? She could not accept the money he had given her. What if his family arrived and accused her of exploiting him? Earlier, she had attempted to communicate, asking if he remembered his home address or phone number. Yet all he could manage were incoherent sounds or pulled out more cash from his pockets. He would occasionally point at an empty bowl and say, "Daddy, hungry, food." It was perplexing. This man, dressed in tattered clothes with holes and mud stains, appeared to possess considerable wealth. Was he perhaps a homeless person collecting scrap? Xiaolon had heard that those in the recycling business could earn quite a bit. Given his mental state, she couldn't simply cast him out into the night without assistance. As for calling the police, she was an officer herself and understood the procedures. Even if she brought him to the station, her colleagues would have to return him to the last place he was reported missing, his home. Accompanied by the elderly man, he went from door to door, inquiring among the neighbors, and even throughout the entire community. Can you guess whether Xiaolon now dares to confront the residents of the neighborhood? With a heavy sigh, Xiaolon had no choice but to call Lia Si, who was on duty that night, to inquire if anyone had reported the old man's disappearance to the police station. Lia Si firmly insisted, "No, absolutely none. Trust me, I'm quite alert tonight. I've handled every report. If there has been any, just let me know. No problem. You can count on me." Little did Xiaolon know that the only missing person case that had occurred was of such a serious nature that Lia Si had not been informed about it at all. After hanging up the phone, it seemed that the old man would have to stay at home for now, and they could seek assistance at the police station the next day. Meanwhile, two officers, one tall and one short, were downstairs at Xiaolan's residence, methodically knocking on doors to inquire. "Excuse me, have you seen an elderly gentleman? He is in his 70s, of slender build, approximately this tall." "No, I haven't. Thank you. If you do see him, please contact us." After questioning an entire floor, the two officers ascended the staircase, preparing to inquire on the second floor. During their ascent, they began to converse in hushed tones. The taller officer complained, "Didn't we agree that I would handle the questioning while you observe the expressions of the residents? Why do you keep losing focus?" The other officer, feeling somewhat embarrassed, scratched his head. "It's not intentional. Don't you think there is an exceptionally pleasant aroma in the air?" "Of course. We noticed it as soon as we entered the community," the shorter officer quickly replied. "No, don't you find that the fragrance from this building is particularly intense? Just inhaling it makes me feel lightheaded." The taller officer swallowed hard, nodding in agreement. "Ah, it must be emanating from one of the households in this building. Let us not get sidetracked. We're here to investigate, not to beg for food. We must focus on our task." The shorter officer appeared hesitant, wrestling with his thoughts for a moment before finally asking, "Brother, I didn't feel comfortable asking this at the station. Now that it's just the two of us, I'd like to discreetly inquire." The taller officer shot him a glance. "What do you want to know? Is it true that our precinct chief's father, who came to the city for medical treatment, is dealing with issues related to his mental faculties? I'm not being derogatory. I mean conditions like dementia. Otherwise, at 70 years old, he shouldn't be so confused as to get lost." The taller officer, who had been leading the way, suddenly halted, his expression turning grave. He stepped back on the stairs, solemnly stating, "We need to keep this low-key. Let me discreetly update you on the situation. If the old gentleman truly went missing due to dementia, our chief wouldn't be so anxious. Do you know? The old man is not at all confused. In fact, he is in better shape than many 50-year-olds. As he spoke, his voice grew quieter, and the last few words were whispered close to the shorter officer's ear. "But herein lies the issue. A man of such vigor, with both limbs intact and a clear mind, has suddenly vanished without any contact with his family." The director was deeply concerned, fearing that the old man had been kidnapped, which explained his lack of contact. The short police officer gasped in shock upon hearing this, quickly covering his mouth. His previous demeanor of greed vanished, replaced by a sharp gaze. With this revelation, the nature of the case escalated. What had initially seemed like a mundane missing persons report had now risen to the level of a kidnapping. However, he quickly regained his composure and inquired, "Hasn't the old man been in the city for just a short time? How could his identity have been exposed so swiftly? Moreover, who would dare to kidnap the father of our director? What vendetta could prompt such a perilous act?" His questions were soon addressed by the tall officer, who explained, "It's possible the abduction was not aimed at the director. You see, the old man was once part of the armed police. In those days, military and police forces were intertwined. He undertook numerous sensitive and dangerous missions, both internationally and domestically. If even one enemy from his past remains alive, it could be a matter of life and death. Can you blame the director for his anxiety?" The short officer fell silent, his breath quickening in realization. He had not anticipated the gravity of their assignment. "I understand, brother. I will focus entirely on the task at hand. When you knock and question the homeowner, I will diligently observe their reactions." The two continued upstairs, refraining from further conversation, burying their previous dialogue deep within. Chapter 20. I suspect a murderer resides next door. Above the two officers, in a room on the third floor, Xiaolon vehemently rejected the old man's request for a 10th pig trotter. "At your age? How can you not have any sense about eating? Can you even digest that?" The old man, with a protruding belly, burped repeatedly while lamenting his hunger. Xiaolon showed no leniency, rolling her eyes at him. It wasn't he that she was stingy. Rather, the old man's belly resembled a thin-skinned walnut, ready to burst. The thought of him eating more was simply unacceptable. She could not bear the responsibility of his health issues. Seeing that Xiaolon would not relent, the old man began to raise a ruckus, shouting loudly. He He seemed to have discovered that Xiaolan was particularly anxious about drawing the neighbor's attention, and thus employed this tactic to force her into submission multiple times. However, this time, Xiaolan was resolute. If you keep shouting, I will take you to the police station right now. You won't get another bite to eat in the morning. Instantly, the old man fell silent. He had no desire to visit the police station, for there he would be reclaimed by that unfilial son of his. Without Xiaolan, who would treat him with such kindness and provide him with such delectable pig trotters. Little did Xiaolan know that this seemingly senile old man, who feigned ignorance and insisted on his whims, was actually the father of their precinct's director. The old man carried a mobile phone, which he had deliberately switched off and hidden deep within his sock, secured tightly to prevent anyone from contacting his family to retrieve him. This crafty old man was neither mentally impaired nor physically ill. If anything, his only flaw was a voracious appetite. Not long ago, he had a heated argument with his son over the phone. His son adamantly forbade him from consuming mushrooms, even insisting that if he were to eat them, they must be thoroughly cooked until soft. Otherwise, the toxicity would remain. This ungrateful child, now a director, flaunted his authority, even attempting to intimidate him. Did he really think he was unaware of the potential dangers of mushrooms? The last time he was hospitalized, it had nothing to do with mushrooms. It was clearly due to his indulgence in alcohol. If he simply refrained from drinking while enjoying mushrooms, there would be no issue at all. And the insistence on cooking them to mush? That would strip the mushrooms of their delightful flavor. What enjoyment would remain? During their quarrel, his son dredged up old grievances. Recalling the incident when he had eaten bamboo shoots and suffered from gastric bleeding, he claimed that the coarse fibers in bamboo shoots could damage the stomach lining and forbade him from consuming them again. What nonsense! In his youth, he had traversed jungles for 3 days and nights, roasting snakes, frogs, and scorpions over a lighter and eating them whole. Could a mere tender shoot harm his stomach now? It was clearly the cookware's fault. It must have been too new and improperly heated. Next time, he would use an old pan and add more oil, and all would be well. The old man had explained himself clearly over the phone, yet this obstinate child refused to listen. He insisted on worrying about his father's solitary life in the countryside, claiming that he would inevitably eat himself into trouble. He even proposed bringing him to the city for better care. What a joke! Was he not aware of the city's reality? Though bustling and lively, it was a genuine culinary wasteland. Fast food was pre-prepared, meals were day-old, fried eggs were frozen, and the meat was synthetic. Living in such a place, even if one were to reach 100 years, it would be as if one were merely preserved in a jar. How could he possibly resemble a living person? This ungrateful child was already overwhelmed with his own gastric ailments, yet still claimed he would take care of him, though he found himself at a loss for words. That stubborn son still sent someone to drive him to the city, forcibly dragging him into the car. At that moment, he was working in the fields and had no time to change his clothes. He was ambushed from behind, his mouth covered, and lifted into the vehicle. Throughout the journey, the old man plotted his escape. Once they reached the city, he finally seized an opportunity. A road was choked with traffic, seemingly filled with residents from nearby neighborhoods, all wandering about, noses in the air as if searching for something. Taking advantage of the driver stepping out to clear the pedestrians blocking the road, the old man removed his coat, using a cushion to feign sleep, and quietly slipped away. As soon as he opened the car door, he was met with the intoxicating aroma in the air. Initially intending to return to the countryside, he found himself irresistibly drawn in by the scent. Like a fish on a hook, swept along by the crowd. In his search, he stumbled upon the neighborhood where Xiaolan resided, the source of the enchanting fragrance. While others might have been left merely salivating in place, he, armed with the tracking skills he had honed in his youth, pressed on directly to the source. When neighbors abandoned their vigil, deterred by Xiaolan's refusal to answer the door, only the old man, fortified with unyielding resolve, managed to wait patiently until she finally opened it. Indeed, the plan encountered a slight mishap. He initially intended to negotiate amicably with Xiaolan, hoping to purchase a morsel of food. However, he discerned that no matter how much money the neighbors might attempt to slip through the gap in the door, it would inevitably be pushed back by the clothing rack. Ultimately, the individuals inside even resorted to sealing the door with tape. To his dismay, his own mouth betrayed him. Upon their first encounter, his saliva escaped faster than the words he wished to express, leading Xiaolan to mistakenly perceive him as simple-minded. Yet, being regarded as such seemed to facilitate his quest for sustenance. If being simple-minded served his purpose, so be it. At his age, calling out for food was not a source of shame. He was neither greedy nor a thief. Among the vices of gluttony, gambling, and debauchery, he only indulged in the former. Apart from that, he harbored no other detrimental habits. After a lifetime of hardship, he saw no harm in relishing a few simple pleasures in his twilight years, satisfying his culinary cravings. Even in his pursuit of food, he relied solely on his own abilities, ascending mountains to forage for bamboo shoots and mushrooms, and wading into rivers to catch fish and snails. He never sought to exploit his son's position for luxurious delicacies. He merely craved fresh, quality fare. Now, by means of his cunning, he donned the guise of a fool to beg for food. If he managed to procure a meal, it was a testament to his skill. What shame could there be in that? The old man had firmly resolved to impose himself upon Xiaolan. determined to linger at least until the following morning to enjoy breakfast before departing. If he lacked sufficient funds, he could always repay later. Such exquisite delicacies were fleeting and should not be missed. The taste of the pig's trotters was simply unparalleled, no matter how he savored them. He could never tire of their flavor. Were it not for his old age and diminished appetite, he could have devoured an entire pot. Suddenly, as he pondered this, a series of knocks echoed from the door. Both Xiaolon and the old man were startled, one apprehensive about being taken back by his son, the other fearing that his precious pig's trotters might be carted away. They stood frozen, unable to take a step. The knocking grew increasingly urgent, accompanied by an authoritative voice. "Good day, we are from the Dongqing branch of the Fengling City Public Security Bureau. We need to inquire about a matter with the residents of this building. Please open the door and cooperate." It turned out to be a matter concerning the same precinct. Xiaolon visibly exhaled in relief, while the old man, in stark contrast, grew tense, clenching his backside. This could not be good. It must surely be the underlings of that wretched brat. He had barely managed to escape for a few hours, and already the brat had dispatched his subordinates to investigate. What a waste of police resources, truly deserving of reprimand. The old man stealthily extended a leg, even preparing to leap out of the window. Meanwhile, Xiaolon approached the door, ready to move the refrigerator aside to allow his colleague's entry. Just as his hand touched the fridge, a voice from the neighboring apartment called out, "Oh dear, officers. Be cautious. I suspect there is a murderer living next door." Chapter 21. Who are you accusing of murder and dismemberment? The two officers immediately adopted a grave demeanor, displaying heightened vigilance as they inquired, "Why do you suspect him of being a murderer? Do you know him?" The neighbor lowered her voice, yet in the acoustically deficient building, her words were still clear. She conspiratorially whispered, "Do you smell that aroma in the air? It's from the stew that this young man is cooking. This young man has been cooking for the past few days, and the aroma wafts through the entire building, preventing us from sleeping soundly." The neighbors seemed to have finally found someone to vent their frustrations to, and they chatter incessantly like pouring beans. But how come this lad won't open his door? The entire building's residents have come downstairs to take turns knocking, yet he feigns deaf and remains silent. Just moments ago, someone in the group mentioned spotting him this morning, stealthily leaving with 2 large iron buckets. Upon his return, he was seen carrying something in a burlap sack, with blood dripping from it. Coincidentally, as you officers are conducting door-to-door inquiries, we find ourselves suspicious, a female neighbor says, her voice trembling as if she fears to continue, prompting her husband to take over. "Officer, are you investigating a homicide? We believe this young man might be involved in something sinister, perhaps even in murder and cooking bodies. It would be wise to call for additional assistance. Should the worst be true, we fear you may not manage alone." Xiaolon felt a wave of exasperation wash over him. So, this is how rumors spread, is it? Just because they can't have pig trotters, they assume there is something amiss. Murder and cannibalism. He truly wished to lift the pot lid and reveal the contents to them. Have you ever seen a person covered in pig trotters? Xiaolon contemplated moving the refrigerator aside to address them, but as he shifted it only halfway, a commotion erupted outside. "Ah, the door is moving. Officers, quickly brace the door, we must retreat." Soon, a flurry of frantic sounds ensued. The couple, skilled in conjuring wild imaginations, hurried back home and locked their door. Xiaolon could hear the sound of a stick colliding with the doorknob. Surely, someone outside was attempting to barricade his door with a broomstick. Then came the crackling sound of the intercom. "Based on public reports, we have identified a suspect in a potential homicide, requesting reinforcement." "Repeat, requesting." Xiaolon quickly shouted through the door. "Wait. It's me, Xiaolon. I'm also from the Dongqing precinct. My badge number is 9527. I am no murderer." There was a moment of silence from the intercom, followed by a skeptical inquiry. "Really?" As a newcomer in the department, the two officers did not recognize him, as they were not from the second squad. "Indeed, just a moment. Let me show you my badge." He tugged at the door, but it wouldn't budge, so he slipped his badge under the door. After a minute of silence, there was finally movement at the door. The broomstick was removed, and the two officers opened the door, their faces filled with apologies as they returned his badge. "We sincerely apologize. There was a report, and we must exercise caution. No harm done. It's good for the public to be vigilant." Xiaolon waved his hand, signaling his understanding. The tense atmosphere dissipated, soon replaced by the enticing aroma that filled the air. The two colleagues visibly salivated before sheepishly asking, "Buddy, what are you cooking? It smells incredible." Upon seeing them lick their lips, Xiaolon felt an ominous premonition. A frail old man could devour 10 pig trotters by himself. 2 strong men would surely require 30 each to feel satisfied. Before they could establish a rapport, Xiaolon hastily shut the door. "It's nothing. Just cooking a little something. You all go about your business. I'll tend to the kitchen." "All right. Sorry to disturb you," the short officer remarked. His eyes filled with disappointment as he watched Xiaolon close the door. Seizing the moment, he pressed his backside against the door crack and inhaled deeply. "Ah, splendid. Do you think he noticed my cravings, closing the door so swiftly?" The tall officer playfully rapped his companion's head and whispered, "What do you expect? Your eyes nearly flew into someone else's kitchen. Hurry up, we still have people to find." The two officers turned and ascended the stairs, continuing their inquiries from house to house. Xiaolon finally let out a sigh of relief, but then suddenly had a thought. Since her colleagues had arrived, she could ask them to escort the unfamiliar old man away. The sooner they returned him home, the better, lest his family grow anxious. However, as Xiaolon glanced into the room, her expression changed dramatically. Wait, where's that old man? He had previously lounged on the sofa, his rotund belly prominently displayed. And now he had inexplicably vanished. The table bore only a pile of gnawed bones, with no sign of him. Rushing into the kitchen, Xiaolon found it empty, save for a large thermos. Lifting the lid revealed nothing but pig-s trotters. A search of the bathroom yielded no results. It was utterly vacant. This small space, barely 20 square meters, should have revealed any hiding presence at a glance. How could he be untraceable? While Xiaolon was away from the living room, the elderly gentleman, who had been hanging by the window ledge, suddenly sprang into action and climbed through the window. When Xiaolon returned to the living room, she was taken aback. The old man had materialized once again. He lay sprawled on the sofa, smacking his lips, his hands contentedly caressing his bulging belly. Upon noticing Xiaolon's gaze, he immediately exclaimed, "Hungry, hungry, meal, meal. Where did you come from? Where have you been?" Xiaolon questioned. The old man merely babbled incoherently. With a resigned sigh, she said, "All right, I'll personally take you to the police station tomorrow." The old man chuckled triumphantly. The moment Xiaolon opened the door, he leaped out the window, pressing himself against the wall to conceal his presence, waiting until she had departed before re-entering. Although he was merely retired, he had not lost the art of evasion. His military training still lingered. After eavesdropping on Xiaolon's conversation with the officers, the old man found himself even less inclined to leave. Having confirmed that Xiaolon was not a villain, there was no reason to depart. To his astonishment, this young woman possessed remarkable culinary skills. And she was not a chef, but a police officer, one of the subordinates of his son. This lad must have a side business outside. He needed to stay and delve deeper into this matter. Late at night, as the rhythmic sound of Xiaolan's breathing emanated from the sofa, the old man quietly rose from the bed. Adjusting his long underwear, he revealed a phone hidden within his socks. He then nestled beneath the blankets and discreetly powered the device on. Locating his son's number, he sent a text message, "I am safe. There is no need to search for me." After a moment's contemplation, he sent another message, "I need some cash urgently. Only cash will do. Please place it in an envelope and leave it at XXXX. I will retrieve it when I have the time." This money is intended for Xiaolan's meal expenses, as the amount he brought previously was insufficient. He opted for cash, fearing that a bank transfer might leave a trace of the transaction, allowing that rebellious offspring to track him down. Time was of the essence, and his text messages were succinct, devoid of any awareness that his abrupt tone bore an unsettling resemblance to that of a kidnapper. Meanwhile, on the other side, upon hearing the specially designated notification tone, Director N, who was working overtime, sprang up from his seat. The screen emitted a soft blue glow, illuminating the sharply defined features of this young bureau chief. His brow furrowed deeply. After reading the first message, his expression remained tense, even more so than before. The brief 8-character message was scrutinized repeatedly by Director N, who ultimately let out a long sigh. The absence of the term rebel indicated that the sender was not his usual self. It seemed the old man might genuinely be in peril. Chapter 22. After half an hour of setting up his stall, he munched on 3 pig's trotters. Director N understood his old man all too well. If the old man had run away, he would have certainly called him afterward, hurling insults, rather than sending a polite message devoid of any reprimand. When unusual events occur, there is invariably something amiss. There was only one possibility. The old man was currently unable to move freely, perhaps even under surveillance. When the second message arrived, all speculations appeared to be confirmed. Director N clenched his fists, unable to restrain himself from striking the table with a punch. Disseminate my father's photograph and the missing person report across the city's public security chat group, he instructed his deputy in a grave tone. Ensure that comrades from other divisions remain vigilant during their duties. The criminals capable of seeking revenge on my father are undoubtedly ruthless and desperate. Their presence in our Fengling city poses a significant threat to all citizens. We must utilize the critical 48-hour window for missing persons. Understood. At that moment, Lia Si, who had been tasked by Xiaolon to monitor the missing persons case, had already completed his shift and returned home to sleep, thus missing any relevant updates. If the matter were entrusted to him, one could rest assured it would end in failure. The following day, Xiaolon checked the time and estimated that the office workers and students had already left for their respective destinations. He hurriedly retrieved the thermos, panting as he carried it down the stairs. Fortunately, he lived on the 3rd floor. Had it been the 7th or 8th, it would have been quite taxing. He quickly spotted his uniquely designed food cart downstairs, painted in fluorescent colors and surrounded by a ring of flashing lights, exuding an inexplicable coolness. Adjacent to the driver's seat was a rain canopy, currently folded, which could be unfurled in the event of inclement weather, not only shielding the entire cart, but also accommodating a few small tables for customers to sit and eat. As Xiaolon lifted 2 buckets of pig's trotters onto the cart, he couldn't help but reflect on how beneficial it had been to eat a health-boosting little apple the previous night. Otherwise, he wouldn't have managed to carry both buckets without feeling exhausted. just as he was about to turn back upstairs to fetch the other 2 buckets. A gaunt figure abruptly entered his line of sight, causing his pupils to constrict in alarm. Last night, I observed the elderly man, seemingly addled, unexpectedly shouldering 2 thermoses filled with pig's trotters as he descended the stairs. I couldn't fathom how this aged gentleman could carry such heavy burdens. I feared he might injure his back, and then his family would hold Xiaolan accountable. In a rush, Xiaolan exclaimed, "Let me help you." But the old man deftly evaded her outstretched hand with a slight twist of his body. He began to utter a series of nonsensical babble, but then abruptly remembered to feign ignorance and quickly changed his words. Xiaolan, feeling helpless, could only accompany the sprightly old man as he effortlessly placed the thermoses onto the snack cart, leaving her utterly astonished. This old man possessed an extraordinary strength. Moments later, he calmly produced a folding stool, placed it on the tricycle, and sat down steadily. Xiaolan found herself at a loss, unsure whether the old man was genuinely forgetful or merely pretending. Regardless, she decided to set aside her curiosity. The priority was to set up their stall. With the electric tricycle, there was no need for pedaling, making their setup much quicker. Upon arriving at the entrance of the electronics factory, they found only a handful of vendors scattered about, with some still selling breakfast. Xiaolan opted for a spot near the entrance, nearly the same location where the braised meat vendor had set up previously. It wasn't that she aimed to attract business, but rather the proximity allowed her to keep a watchful eye on the surroundings. Gradually, other snack vendors began to arrive, all familiar faces engaged in lunchtime trade. Upon spotting Xiaolan's new tricycle, they paused momentarily. A newcomer? What are they selling? But as they recognized her face and the familiar sign, realization dawned upon them. It was her, the seller of the renowned sauce-braised pig's trotters. The scene from yesterday, where customers had clung to her cart, refusing to let her depart, had already circulated among the snack vendors. It was said that her trotters were exorbitantly priced, yet exquisitely delicious. On the very first day of her stall, customers had gone into a frenzy. Curiously, they noted that she had ridden in on a brand new snack cart yesterday. How was it that today she had acquired an even newer one? Perhaps her business was thriving, and she sought to expand. The sight of 4 large thermoses on the cart, along with the old man assisting her, incited a wave of envy among the other vendors. How could she, having just begun her stall, already require assistance? Rumor had it she sold her trotters for 80 yuan per pound, with those 4 massive containers. She must be raking in 5,000 to 6,000 yuan a day. The other vendors watched with longing eyes, yet none dared to follow suit. The fate of the braised meat vendor from yesterday was still fresh in their minds. Even after Xiaolan's departure, her trotters remained unsold. They had dropped to 20 yuan per pound, yet still attracted no interest. Ultimately, he had left in disgrace, unsure of where he might go to offer discounts. Without her exceptional skills, who could hope to seize her business? As time passed, it was soon 11:30, and some cunning employees had already slipped away early. The early bird catches the worm, and the early employee enjoys the delicacies. As they stepped out of the door, they did not hasten to search with their eyes, but instead twitched their noses in the air. What a delightful aroma! The vendor selling braised pig trotters must have arrived. I can smell it. Right over there. With that, they rushed toward Xiaolan's stall. Remarkably, they were able to pinpoint Xiaolan's location solely by scent. Xiaolan sighed helplessly. Although his thermos was tightly sealed, he was accompanied by an insatiable old cat. After setting up for just over half an hour, the old man had already devoured 3 of his pig trotters. Chewing away, the delectable scent wafted through the air. The surrounding vendors lost all motivation to work. Several times, a vendor swallowed hard, contemplating a purchase, only to be yanked back by their spouse, who scolded, "Buying again? How can we earn 80 today if you keep thinking about spending?" Xiaolan felt a pang of sympathy and mourned for them for 3 seconds in silence. He also internally resolved that once he closed his stall, he must send this gluttonous old man to the police station. Otherwise, no matter how many pig trotters he cooked, they would never suffice for the old man's appetite. "Boss, give me a pig trotter, the biggest one." The first customer dashed to Xiaolan's stall. Immediately, a colleague beside him shouted, "Boss, I want the absolute biggest one, even bigger than his." His voice boomed, echoing through the tranquil, snowy day. Those vendors yet to open, upon hearing this commotion, felt a pang of envy. Xiaolan's pig trotters were priced by weight. The larger, the more expensive. How could these customers be so affluent? Is it possible that the electronic factory is filled with hidden rich second-generation heirs seeking a taste of life? In the distance, the vendor of braised snacks, already looking somewhat green, turned an even deeper shade. Despite offering various discounts and promotions until dawn, he failed to sell out his pig trotters. Perhaps the quality of his ingredients was lacking, as some had begun to smell foul in this cold weather. After just one day, ordinary meals left outside could last for several days. He realized that if he didn't eat them soon, they would soon be inedible. To recoup his losses, the braised snacks vendor forced himself to consume a few. That night, he suffered from vomiting and diarrhea, rushing to the restroom 5 times, and had to buy medicine overnight to find relief. Now, his face looked pale, marked by 2 dark circles under his eyes, clearly a sign of sleeplessness. Upon waking, he hurriedly prepared more braised dishes. By the time he arrived here, he was already late. The prime location near the entrance had been taken. He could only set up far away, exacerbating his already dismal business situation. What kind of situation is this? Chapter 23. Fully automated self-service purchasing. Yesterday, when Xiaolan sold pig trotters from a much farther and less favorable position, how did he attract such a crowd? Now that he occupies the auspicious spot previously held by the braised snacks vendor, the situation is even more remarkable. While others have yet to open, long lines have already formed at his stall. Each customer is limited to one purchase, no proxy buying allowed. Please line up properly, no need to rush. Everyone will get their turn. No second lines. I can recognize faces quite well, so no repeat purchases. As more and more customers arrived, Xiaolan found himself increasingly at ease. He stood idly by, hands tucked into his sleeves, observing the scene unfold without lifting a finger. Initially, customers were eager to select larger pig trotters for themselves. Xiaolan was indifferent. After all, each person could only purchase one, regardless of how meticulous their selection. He handed out the iron tongs, allowing them to choose for themselves. Once selected, they weighed their choices on the scale. The electronic scale displayed the price automatically, with a payment code conveniently posted for self-scanning. For those desiring chili condiments, pre-packaged portions awaited their retrieval, limited to 1 packet per person, available on a first-come, first-served basis. The workers, primarily accustomed to assembly line tasks, collaborated seamlessly. In no time, Xiaolan's stall transformed into a self-service sales model. Customers queued, selected their products, weighed them, packed them, and completed their payments independently, while Xiaolan merely glanced at the electronic scale's readout. Naturally, there were a few restless patrons who were unwilling to settle for just one. They attempted to engage Xiaolan in conversation. "Boss, I see you've got a new car. I was here yesterday for your pig trotters. Do you remember me? Your trotters are simply divine. After tasting them, I have no desire for anything else. In fact, I hesitate to brush my teeth. I dream of indulging in pig trotters all night." Alas, it was unfortunate that they could only buy one, insufficient to satisfy their cravings. With such long-winded pleasantries, it was evident they sought to procure an additional trotter. For these unruly customers, Xiaolan had a singular method to quell their antics. He would lift the pot lid, swiftly covering the insulated container when they attempted to be friendly. "Careful, don't spray your saliva in here." Upon hearing this, nearly all the customers in line would shoot daggers at the talkative one, fully aware that even in silence, they struggled to swallow their saliva. Otherwise, their drool would uncontrollably escape. Those who spoke risked inadvertently spraying, potentially contaminating the precious trotters within the container, an unforgivable offense. Under the pressure from those behind, no one dared to waste time with idle chatter, hastily concluding their purchases. Subsequently, Xiaolan turned away several individuals who attempted to disguise themselves or alter their appearance in hopes of acquiring a second trotter. Now, no one dared to employ any trickery. They dutifully bought their trotter and departed. Should they wish for more, they would have to arrive early the next day or gamble on returning at night, hoping that Xiaolan wouldn't recognize them in the dim light. Since the purchasing process had evolved into a fully automated system, Xiaolan decided to further streamline operations. Every glance at the price strained his eyes, so he opted to activate the electronic scale's voice feature. Each time a customer weighed their selection, the scale would announce the price, 582 yuan. Following this, as customers made their payments, the collection code would also vocalize, "Wealth has arrived, 582 yuan." With both prices aligned audibly, his eyes were liberated from strain, allowing his ears to take on the workload. Snowflakes danced in the air as the north wind whispered through the scene. Countless vendors watched as customers flocked to Xiaolan's stall, independently making their purchases. Meanwhile, the incessant, soulless mechanical voice echoed continuously. While others charged between 5 to 7 yuan, Xiaolan's prices started at a minimum of 20 yuan. As if fearing that the patrons could not hear, the announcement was repeated twice. The electronic scale chimed once, followed by the payment voice prompt. It was utterly disheartening. Freed from the monotony of repetitive tasks, Xiaolan focused on observing his surroundings. Yet, he still could not spot the elusive suspect. However, he did discover an intriguing phenomenon. He noticed that the inner side of the food cart, closest to him, had two distinct lights flashing alternately. As stated on the food cart's detailed page, it illuminated a blue light in the presence of good people and a red light for those of ill intent. Yet, Xiaolan observed that the intensity of the light varied. It did not merely display a single hue. Instead, it selectively showcased shades of light blue, pale blue, bright blue, deep blue, and dark blue, depending on the attributes of the current customers. If a customer lingered, the color remained unchanged. With each new customer, the light would shift anew. Based on Xiaolan's observations, the cart predominantly displayed blue lights, suggesting that there were few wrongdoers among his patrons. A handful of red lights flickered, but their hues were faint, nearly resembling a soft pink. Xiaolan surmised that these individuals likely engaged in petty theft rather than heinous crimes. However, the specifics remained unclear, warranting further investigation in the future. Suddenly, Xiaolan froze. The food cart illuminated a red light, a brilliant, intense crimson that bordered on black. The red light flashed rapidly, serving as a warning, urging him to exercise caution. A jolt of anxiety surged through Xiaolan as he slowly raised his gaze. Before him stood a tall, slender man clad in a black mask and hat, Given the frigid weather, donning such attire seemed perfectly normal and not suspicious. Yet, the alarming flashing of the food cart's red light suggested a serious infraction. Xiaolon recalled that this food cart was equipped with a one-touch alarm feature. Should he press it? However, if the alarm succeeded and there was no evidence, how could he explain this to his fellow vendors? In that moment, Xiaolan's mind raced while he maintained a facade of composure. He dared not fixate on the tall man, fearing it might raise his suspicions. He observed as the man selected pig trotters with tongs and weighed them before retrieving cash from his pocket and extending it towards him. "I do not accept cash," Xiaolon suddenly proclaimed, tapping on the posted payment code and declaring loudly, "Transfer the payment via mobile. I do not accept cash." The tall man visibly frowned. And after a moment of apparent reluctance, he spoke in a low, deliberate tone, "I do not have my phone." His voice was deep, as if he were deliberately suppressing it, further solidifying Xiaolan's belief in the food cart's assessment. What a jest! In this day and age, who ventures out without a mobile phone? Xiaolan widened her eyes, feigning a brazen and unreasonable demeanor. "I don't care. I simply do not accept cash." The other party hesitated, irritation lacing his voice. "Refusing cash is illegal. Do not try to intimidate me." "What illegality? I refuse to accept cash. I do not have change to give you." Upon hearing her last remark, the lean, tall man assumed the inability to provide change was the vendor's pretext for confrontation. He exhaled in relief, stating, "It's fine, no need for change." With that, he tossed the money down and prepared to take his pig trotters. Chapter 24, Robber and Murderer. The perilous purchase of pig trotters. Xiaolon was adamant about not letting him depart. She swiftly grasped his hand, shoving the cash back towards him. "No, it is not merely a matter of change. I do not want paper currency. It has been touched by so many. It's filthy. Quickly, pay me via QR code." The tall man turned back, his eyes now reflecting impatience and anger. "I told you, I do not have my phone. Moreover, refusing paper currency is illegal." Xiaolon grew increasingly convinced that this man's aversion to mobile payments indicated a deeper issue. Mobile payments are linked to real identities. Once a transaction occurs, a record is created. Law-abiding citizens do not fear transaction records. Only those with guilty consciences, the criminals, would dread exposing their whereabouts. Xiaolon discreetly pressed the emergency button on the food cart. She was uncertain if the cart could successfully alert the authorities or how long it would take for them to arrive. Upon pressing the button, there was no response. Xiaolon could only continue to play the role of an unreasonable vendor, attempting to stall the miscreant. "Trying to intimidate me with your illegal claims. I have faced worse. I won't fall for your tactics. Quickly, use the QR code." A glint of malice flickered in the lean man's eyes. The food cart, which despises injustice, would neither wrong an innocent nor let any villain escape. This man was indeed a significant criminal. His true name was Feng Li, who had previously committed armed robbery at a jewelry store in Shihong City, stabbing a store clerk multiple times in the process. The latest news revealed that the clerk had succumbed to his injuries, thus elevating Feng's charges to robbery and murder. Since committing his crime, Feng Li had been fleeing across multiple cities. Throughout his escape, he exercised extreme caution, donning a hat and mask at all times. He only traveled in unregistered vehicles and conducted transactions solely in cash. He avoided crowded places and refrained from speaking unnecessarily. Now, in the winter, he wrapped himself tightly, raising no suspicions. With this strategy, he evaded relentless pursuit, traversing across several cities. His goal was to find a secluded small town to hide in, allowing the storm to pass before gradually selling the stolen jewelry and quietly amassing wealth. As long as he avoided trouble and maintained a calm, low profile, he could continue his clandestine escape. However, today, as he passed by an electronics factory complex, he was irresistibly drawn in by the enticing aroma of pig trotters. Before he could comprehend the situation, his feet instinctively carried him to the end of the line, where he joined the queue. When he finally came to his senses and attempted to leave, he discovered a lengthy line had formed behind him. The individuals ahead of him were rapidly dwindling, while those behind him were swiftly multiplying. Who can comprehend such a sensation? It is utterly exhilarating. Moreover, the patrons lining up behind him were incessantly discussing the delectable nature of the pig's trotters. Once one has savored these trotters, they would feel as though their entire existence up to that point had been in vain. "Indeed, I indulged in one just yesterday, and it lingered in my dreams. Upon waking, my pillow was thoroughly soaked with drool." Upon hearing this, Feng Li found himself unable to move his legs any further. Throughout his time in hiding, the sustenance he had consumed could hardly be classified as food. It was merely a meager sustenance to maintain his vital signs. His digestive system, long neglected and treated with disdain, erupted in profound grievance amidst the enticing aroma of the pig's trotters. He felt as if he dared to leave the queue. His intestines would leap from his throat, binding his hands and feet, while his stomach would leap from his mouth, delivering resounding slaps to his face. Feng Li observed that the process of purchasing the pig's trotters was entirely self-service, requiring no eye contact or verbal exchange with the vendor. One merely needed to take the trotters and pay. Thus, he resolved to take a gamble, wagering that he could procure the trotters and escape unscathed. However, he never anticipated that the vendor, who appeared accommodating, was quite obstinate. He refused to accept cash, deeming it unsanitary. Infuriated, even a fugitive like Feng Li could not restrain himself from educating the vendor on the law. The onlookers, unable to bear the scene, urged the vendor, just accept it. He is not threatening you. Refusing cash is indeed unlawful. Indeed, vendor, do not hesitate. I fear for your apprehension. Please accept the payment. Some even proposed, what if I pay for him? Please, vendor, do not be stubborn. I genuinely fear for your arrest. I wish to savor your pig's trotters again. Yet, the vendor remained resolute, defiantly declaring, I shall not. I refuse to accept it. If he claims I am breaking the law, let him call the authorities. At the mere mention of the police, alarm bells rang throughout Feng Li's body. Regardless of the tumult within his stomach, his mind seized absolute control. He tossed the trotters onto the snack cart and turned to leave, stating, I shall not buy it. Halt, Xiao Lan insisted, refusing to relinquish his grip. You claim you won't buy it. You have already selected it. My rule is that once you pick it up, you must purchase it. Such reasoning was exceedingly tenuous. Feng Li's gaze turned cold as he sensed something amiss with Xiao Lan. What sort of business was conducted in this manner? Refusing cash, dismissing offers to pay, and preventing him from leaving despite his refusal. All these contradictions appeared deliberately designed to detain him. Discreetly, Feng Li reached into his inner pocket, where a spring knife was concealed. Should he sense any further irregularities, he would strike without mercy. Xiao Lan, perceptively, sensed the murderous intent glimmering in Feng Li's eyes. As if he had transformed into a chicken with its neck grasped firmly. He felt the blood in his body instinctively retreating towards his legs and arms. A primal survival instinct urging him to flee. At that moment, Xiao Lan felt an overwhelming wave of regret for not purchasing the painfully remorseful little chili pepper at the point shop the previous night. Although the specific function remains unclear, the name itself suggests a fitting tool for apprehending criminals. At that moment, a van gradually came to a halt not far away. Inside the vehicle, a contingent of uniformed police officers was present. However, they had not arrived in response to Xiao Lan's emergency alert. Rather, they were summoned by a patrolling officer seeking assistance. This officer pointed at the elderly man beside Xiao Lan and stated, upon closer inspection, I believe that man resembles the missing father of the director from the East City Police Station. His demeanor is abnormal. He appears dazed and is drooling incessantly. I suspect he may be under the influence of drugs. I am certain that the vendor selling pig trotters nearby is not to be trusted. He has been surreptitiously surveying the surroundings, his attention entirely diverted from his business. It is likely that the vendor's true identity is that of a kidnapper. Upon hearing this report, the fully armed officers nodded in understanding. Although Fengling City is not a first-tier metropolis, it boasts over 10 police precincts, each with at least 5 subordinate stations. Consequently, it is not surprising that personnel from other precincts are unfamiliar with the newcomer Xiao Lan. The officers began to strategize. While the kidnapper is distracted by a customer, we must swiftly apprehend him. With so many potential witnesses, we must act decisively to prevent his escape and safeguard bystanders. Understood. 3, 2, 1, action. Chapter 25. Is the consequence of refusing cash this severe? Like arrows released from a bow, several figures burst from the vehicle, their speed so great that they left shadows in their wake. Armed with steel shields, wearing helmets, and wielding steel forks and batons, they resembled celestial warriors as they swiftly approached the pig trotter stand. Xiao Lan caught a glimpse of his colleagues and was taken aback with joy. Could it be that the food truck's call for help had been successful? In the next moment, a massive steel fork knocked Xiao Lan to the ground, leaving him bewildered. While bloodthirsty fugitives are undoubtedly terrifying, the sudden assault from his fellow officers was even more unexpected. Wait, why are you attacking me? Xiao Lan exclaimed, equally stunned as the fugitive. Feng Li noticed the officers rushing toward him and had drawn his knife. If given 3 more seconds, he would have pressed the spring to unleash the blade. To his astonishment, the police targeted the pig trotter vendor instead. Feng Li's mind momentarily short-circuited. Is the consequence of refusing cash this severe? Have they deployed riot control forks? Although refusing cash is indeed illegal, has the enforcement become excessively rigorous? The unfolding events were utterly unexpected. Feng Li never anticipated that the police were not there to apprehend him. It felt as though he had removed his trousers only to discover he was not in a restroom. Could it be that this vendor was also a criminal? And that his crimes were more severe than robbery or murder? There was no time for further contemplation. Seizing the moment of chaos, Feng Li attempted to slip away unnoticed. His past indiscretions could not withstand scrutiny. Should the police take him back to the station for questioning, it would spell trouble. As Feng Li passed by the dazed old man, a sudden, excruciating pain shot through his arm. Before he could comprehend the situation, a sharp crack echoed in his ears. His arm had fractured. In the next moment, he found himself forcefully pinned to the ground, his arm twisted behind him. The hand clutching a spring knife was firmly restrained beneath a boot clad in senior citizen shoes. Feng Li's mind was still in a haze, but he quickly realized that his identity had been compromised, prompting him to struggle desperately. The old man, however, was swift and decisive, delivering a chop to the carotid artery. Then, removing his shoelaces, he expertly bound the fugitive's hands, reminiscent of a technique used for tying up pigs. The onlookers, taken aback, could not help but murmur amongst themselves. No wonder that young man selling pig trotters has such a temper. It must be inherited from his old man. To strike someone so brazenly in front of the police. What a fierce family. Good grief. He nearly beat the man to a pulp just because he refused to accept mobile payments. Surely the vendor won't end up in jail? I still want to enjoy his pig trotters. One suggested, why not take the fall for him and claim you coerced him into rejecting cash? I will definitely visit you in prison to buy pig trotters. The police, initially dispatched to rescue the old man, were astonished to witness him attacking a passerby with a proficiency that rivaled their own. They stood in disbelief. Impressive. No wonder he is the father of the director of the East City Police Station. Truly, a tiger begets no dog. However, they soon questioned why the old man would resort to violence against a stranger. At that moment, they heard the old man shout, "Stop dawdling. Come help. He has a knife." Prompted by the mention of a knife, the officers rushed over. Several replaced the old man, subduing the fugitive. Though the old man had aged and was no longer as robust as before, his professional acumen remained sharp. While Xiaolon argued with the fugitive, the old man had keenly sensed something amiss in the man's gaze. This was not the look of a desperate criminal. His hands bore no blood, and such eyes could not betray that. The instant the fugitive brandished the spring knife, the old man's suspicions were confirmed. Seizing the opportune moment, he struck decisively. As the police removed Feng Li's mask, they were stunned to discover Feng Li, the very robbery murder suspect the police have been hunting for months. The officers gasped. How could this wanted criminal be here? Has he kidnapped the old man alongside the vendor? The old man rolled his eyes. Kidnapped? I merely stayed briefly at my relative's child's home. Before he could finish, he noticed Xiaolon, pinned helplessly to the ground by two steel forks, unable to move. His eyes widened in alarm as he rushed forward. Hey, why are you jabbing my dad? What have you done to my relative's child? Let go. Be gentle. Don't hurt him. The officers restraining Xiaolon were bewildered, casting confused glances at the patrol officer who had called for assistance, as if to inquire. Didn't you say this person had kidnapped the old man? How did the kidnapper suddenly become a relative's child? The patrol officer, scratching his head, appeared equally perplexed. As if his mind were nearing a breakdown. The scene had descended into chaos, and at that precise moment, a squad of police officers arrived in their patrol car. Leading the team was Captain Liu from the 2nd Squad of the East City Branch, who just so happened to be Xiaolan's direct superior. He had received a dispatch order from the command center, stating that a major fugitive had been spotted at the west gate of the electronics factory. Liu, caught mid-meal, hastily abandoned his food and rushed over, taking no more than 10 minutes to arrive. To his astonishment, another team had already responded even more swiftly. Are you from the Southwest Branch? Liu exclaimed upon seeing two individuals subdued on the ground, shock washing over him. There are two fugitives? You apprehended them both? So quickly? Turning around, he recognized an elderly man who appeared somewhat familiar. Rubbing his eyes, Liu realized that this man was the father of their East City Branch's director. His shock multiplied. You even located the old gentleman? What remarkable efficiency. The Southwest Branch is truly exceptional, solving 2 cases in 10 minutes. Upon closer inspection, Liu recognized one of the subdued suspects as his subordinate, Xiaolon. Overwhelmed by a whirlwind of thoughts, he trembled as he raised his hand. Incredulity etched across his face. Please tell me you haven't discovered that this young man betrayed the organization, and that's why you apprehended him too? No one could fathom the extent of Liu's worldview being shattered in mere seconds. In the past, he had been preoccupied with competing against another captain for case resolution efficiency. Who could have anticipated that, unbeknownst to him, his peers had escalated to such a level? 3 cases resolved in 10 minutes. The officers from the Southwest Branch awkwardly scratched their noses, sensing that perhaps a misunderstanding had occurred. Liu responded, regardless, let us return to the station to discuss this. This is not the appropriate place for conversation. Indeed, the patrons had already formed a long queue, and following the earlier commotion, even more onlookers had gathered, many pulling out their phones to record the spectacle. The other vendors abandoned their stalls to witness the unfolding drama. The 2 teams of police officers conversing on the street could not be allowed to be recorded. With a decisive wave of his hand, Liu instructed everyone. Return to the station. Chapter 26 Vendor. How can I survive without your pig trotters? As for Xiaolon, he too was taken aboard the police car to assist with the investigation. His tricycle and pig trotters were left in the care of the officer who had summoned the crowd. Riding the electric tricycle, laden with the remaining 2 buckets of pig trotters, he followed behind the police vehicle. The gathered crowd, witnessing the departure of the pig trotters, suddenly realized something was amiss. Wait, my pig trotters. I paid for them, and I haven't collected them yet. They cried. Please, don't leave. I waited in line for so long. And finally made it to the front. Officer, could you please wait until the vendor sells out the pig trotters before taking him away? The crowd, belatedly aware of their role in the commotion, raised their hands in fervor, shouting as they chased after the car. Vendor, vendor, will we meet again, vendor? You must return after your release. How can I survive without your pig trotters? Officer, please take me with you. Vendor, please don't refuse cash payments in the future. The commotion startled the police officer riding the tricycle, prompting him to shift into top gear. Overtaking several police vehicles in his haste to protect the barrels of evidence from being seized. Upon witnessing the chaotic throng of customers behind him, Lao Lu cast a shocked glance at Xiaolon, who sat in the back seat. This scene resembled something out of an apocalyptic film, where one is pursued by ravenous zombies. Goodness, could the pig trotters created by this lad truly be that delectable? Before Xiaolon could respond, the elderly gentleman beside him proudly proclaimed, "Indeed, Xiaolon's culinary skills are unparalleled. Otherwise, how could that fugitive have willingly taken the bait? Wait, how did Xiaolon become part of your family?" Lao Lu pondered, recalling that the old man was the father of Director N. Was there perhaps some familial connection between Xiaolon and Director N? How then did Xiaolon's relatives evade the employment verification? Lao Lu felt a throbbing in his temples, sensing that the misunderstanding was escalating. It was best not to speak further. He was left wondering if he would have another opportunity to sample a pig trotter. At that moment, Xiaolan's emotions were a tumultuous blend. Having been struck by his peers after reporting the incident was one thing, but being deceived by this old man was quite another. With such remarkable skills, he could easily secure a job as a security guard, yet he chose to swindle food instead. No one had informed Xiaolon that this old man was Director N's father. Until Director N personally confirmed this, no one dared to speak out of turn. Were it not for the captain's presence in the vehicle, Xiaolon would have confronted the old man directly, demanding compensation for the 15 pig trotters he owed him. Indeed, during one lunch alone, the old man had devoured 5 of his trotters. The meager amount given by the old man barely covered a few. Perhaps sensing Xiaolan's unwavering glare, the old man exaggeratedly praised Xiaolan's culinary prowess in an attempt to win his favor. When Xiaolon remained unresponsive, the old man discreetly nudged him and chuckled nervously. "Don't be upset, young man. I didn't mean to deceive you." Xiaolon turned his face toward the window with a huff. "Now you call me young man. What did you call me last night when you were swindling me?" The old man glanced around, embarrassed, and whispered, "Daddy." Xiaolon huffed again, unperturbed. The old man, realizing he could not continue this charade, felt a deep sense of embarrassment. The others in the vehicle were aware of his identity. What would happen if they heard him? He had no shame, but his son valued his reputation. What if his son made things difficult for Xiaolon? "Don't be like that, my young friend. I will certainly repay you for the pig trotters. Let us consider this a budding friendship." Xiaolon continued to gaze out the window, resolutely unyielding. Today, he had endured considerable humiliation. It wouldn't he be so easily appeased. Just as the vehicle came to a halt at the police station entrance, a voice echoed in his mind. Ding. Detection of S-Class fugitive apprehended. Capture effective. Reward, 200,000 yuan and 2,000 points. Keep up the good work. S-Class, 200,000. Xiaolan's heart raced. Indeed, this was a substantial catch. An S-Class fugitive. Surely a sentence of death awaited such a criminal. Although the fugitive was not directly apprehended by Xiaolon, the system's evaluation criteria appeared remarkably lenient. Merely having any connection to Xiaolon seemed sufficient for it to be counted as his achievement. This flattery brought Xiaolon a sense of satisfaction. If enduring a couple of prods with a steel fork could result in the capture of an S-Class criminal, he would willingly accept the discomfort. He promptly accessed the points redemption marketplace, expending 2,000 points to acquire 5 each of the genuine emotion mushroom and reformed little pepper. The recent encounter with an S-Class fugitive made him acutely aware of the necessity of possessing some means of self-defense. After all, one could never tell when danger might strike. In the interrogation room of the Southwest Branch, following fingerprint analysis and facial recognition, the fugitive's identity was essentially confirmed. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Feng Li abandoned all attempts at denial and confessed to his crimes. When asked why he had gone to purchase pig trotters, he expressed his regret and frustration. At that moment, I felt completely bewitched. The aroma was irresistible. I stood in line for a full hour. Had it not been for my craving, I would have escaped by now, living freely. Officer, I wish to report. The vendor's pig trotters must have contained illicit substances. Otherwise, they wouldn't smell so enticing. So irresistible that one can hardly move. Feng Li was acutely aware that his robbery involved a substantial amount and had resulted in a death, leading to a certain death sentence upon capture. Before his demise, he was determined to take a bite out of the vendor. If it weren't for that stubborn vendor refusing to accept cash, he wouldn't have attracted attention. By the way, that vendor doesn't accept cash. I told him it's illegal not to, and he claimed he was from Shaman University. Just because he attended university, he thinks he is impressive? Isn't it just pathetic that he graduated and couldn't find a job, resorting to selling on the streets? The officers interrogating him exchanged bewildered glances. Did this man truly believe that his capture was a result of the vendor's refusal to take cash? The officers resolved to clarify the situation, even if it meant exposing him to the harsh truth. He was not from Shaman University. He was from the police academy. He was an undercover officer executing his duties. And it was his own folly that led to his capture. Feng Li gaped, struggling to comprehend. It took him a while to respond. "Isn't your police academy focused on cooking? Your skills are impressive." The officers were left speechless, as they too were puzzled by the presence of someone like Xiaolon in the police force. They were in the Southwest Branch, and since Feng Li was apprehended by them, officers from the East City Branch had come to assist in the investigation due to the severity of the case. After separate interrogations, the sequence of events finally became clear. Although many might not recognize the newcomer Xiaolon, Captain Lu from the East City branch was familiar with him. With Lu's endorsement, everyone confirmed Xiao Lan's true identity as a police officer. Otherwise, who would believe he wasn't a vendor given his remarkable culinary skills? Chapter 27. A bite of strength like an ox. A day without food feels unbearable. We sincerely apologize for mistaking you for a kidnapper and interrupting your work. We are truly sorry. The officers who had pricked Xiao Lan repeatedly expressed their regrets. Once again, the ritual of pouring tea and offering water ensued. The captain of the criminal police team from the Southwest Bureau emerged, grasping Xiao Lan's hand with an unwavering grip. Young brother, we owe you a debt of gratitude for detaining the fugitive, which enabled our successful apprehension. Your refusal to accept cash is understandable, and we shall not pursue that matter. Old Lu, observing from the side, cast a sidelong glance, his resentment nearly reaching its zenith. What do you mean by that? Were you actually considering pursuing it? It was Xiao Lan who detained the fugitive, yet you intercepted the target we from the East City Bureau were after, taking advantage of the situation while pretending to be virtuous? Oh, how could that be? The captain's face was beaming with joy. The Southwest Bureau had truly struck gold. The command center had not assigned them any tasks. Who could have anticipated that while aiding in the search for a missing elderly man, they inadvertently captured a fugitive? Such a significant accomplishment surely promised a bountiful year-end bonus. Not to mention the overwhelming sense of honor it bestowed. They could now attend provincial meetings with heads held high. The personnel from the Southwest Bureau regarded Xiao Lan with the eyes of a cherished mascot. Only old Lu was lamenting, his heart heavy. Who could remember that Xiao Lan was his asset? Why was it that every time Xiao Lan attracted criminals, they were always intercepted by others? No, he must keep a close eye on Xiao Lan henceforth to prevent others from snatching him away. Fortunately, this time was not without its rewards. They at least managed to recover their bureau chief's father. It was only upon separate inquiry that they discovered this elderly man had been lured away by Xiao Lan's delectable pig trotters. Although it was not a flattering revelation, it was certainly preferable to being targeted by vengeful criminals. With the misunderstanding clarified, old Lu was eager to escort the old man and Xiao Lan back to the East City Bureau to report to the chief. However, just before leaving, they were intercepted. I'm sorry, sir. You may take the old gentleman, but Xiao Lan cannot accompany you. Alarm bells rang in old Lu's mind, and he glared fiercely. What is this? Are you attempting to snatch him away? Regardless of whether you are the captain of the criminal police team or even your bureau chief, such brazen theft is unacceptable. The captain, in high spirits, paid no heed to old Lu's rudeness. Oh, we have no intention of taking anyone. It's just that in the interrogation room, the fugitive accused Xiao Lan of having infused addictive substances into the pig trotters. Before old Lu could erupt in anger, the captain hastily added, of course, we stand by our comrade Xiao Lan. However, given the report, it would be prudent to conduct an investigation. You know how stringent our country is in combating drugs. It's better to be safe than sorry. We must look into this matter. Old Lu's lips moved, but he found himself at a loss for words. Some unscrupulous vendors secretly mixed poppy seeds into their food to entice repeat customers. A previous surprise inspection in the city had indeed uncovered numerous establishments engaged in such illicit practices. Victimized diners expressed that a single bite would endow them with immense strength, while a day without it left them feeling utterly miserable. They had initially believed it to be the skill of the chefs, only to discover it was a form of manipulation. Given the considerable uproar caused by Xiao Lan's pig trotters, it was difficult to dismiss any suspicion. In fact, Xiao Lan's patrons seemed even more fervent than those who had consumed poppy seeds, at least when those vendors were apprehended and taken away in police vehicles. There were no patrons chasing after them to shout words of support. Regardless of their faith in Xiao Lan, the safety of the public must take precedence. A thorough investigation would provide reassurance. Old Lu could only acquiesce. The deputy director's father had also partaken of the pig trotters, consuming 15 of them. Indeed, it would be prudent to ascertain the facts. All right, investigate away. Just know that Xiao Lan will only be here for half a day. He must report back to the East City branch tomorrow. The head of the criminal police department smiled generously. Rest assured, our colleagues at the testing center are both swift and proficient. Xiao Lan can enjoy some tea and peruse the news here. By the end of the day, he will be returned safe and sound. Old Lu turned to Xiao Lan and, in a tone audible to all, quietly advised him, keep your phone handy. If you feel wronged, do not hesitate to call me. Remember, you are under my wing, and the East City branch will always be your home. The head of the criminal police department was visibly perturbed. The insistence on forever home hinted at a fear of the Southwest branch poaching talent. Xiao Lan nodded, then hesitated. What about my oversight duties? You may take a break today. We will discuss it once the test results are in. I will report your situation to the director and see how he wishes to arrange your subsequent tasks. Xiao Lan responded with an O. Watching old Lu lead the elderly man away, he felt puzzled. Why did his minor role as a culinary expert necessitate seeking the director's guidance for arrangements? But he dismissed the thought. After all, he was merely a cook, unfamiliar with matters of administrative organization. The colleagues from the Southwest branch treated Xiao Lan with utmost courtesy. They provided him with a mobile phone, 2 bottles of milk, 3 fruit platters, and 4 packets of biscuits, ushering him into the conference room. Buddy, take a moment to rest here. You need not worry about the testing. We will expedite the process, and results will be available in a few hours. Today, you are simply a concerned citizen aiding in the investigation, and you will receive the highest level of treatment. Xiaolon felt no trepidation. He was confident in the safety of his food. Since they encouraged him to wait at ease, he decided to rest properly. Pulling out his phone, he discovered that they had thoughtfully connected him to Wi-Fi. As he scrolled through short videos, he realized that today's farce had indeed become a trending topic. However, the focus of the online discourse did not center on Xiaolon or the customers, but rather on the police's excessive enforcement. Bystanders commented, the vendor and the customer merely exchanged words over the issue of accepting cash. No one had resorted to violence. The police employed tactics suited for dealing with rioters, using various riot control weapons to subdue the two, which constitutes excessive force. Moreover, two separate groups of officers arrived solely to address a verbal dispute, representing a gross misallocation of police resources and an overreaction. However, as the online sentiment began to swell, the police swiftly issued a response. They released a situation report to clarify the midday incident. The essence of their message was, the information circulating online does not align with the facts. The customer embroiled in the dispute with the vendor was a fugitive, wanted for robbery and murder, having evaded capture across multiple cities and committed numerous violent offenses. Furthermore, the assailant was armed, and to ensure the safety of the general public, the police acted with the utmost severity and caution. In the report, the identity and criminal history of Feng Li, as well as the details of his fugitive escapade, are elucidated with clarity. Conversely, there is nary a mention of Xiaolon by the police, primarily due to his unique status. Should he attract public attention, his covert operations would be rendered untenable. Furthermore, in the videos captured by netizens, Xiaolon is consistently shown incapacitated on the ground, his face obscured, allowing his identity to remain safeguarded. Chapter 28. Forming brotherhood with Xiaolon. Recognizing a foster father, the attention of internet users swiftly shifted to the fugitive. Upon learning that Feng Li had brutally stabbed a shop assistant multiple times during a jewelry heist, an atmosphere of dread enveloped those present at the scene. Suddenly, public sentiment turned. Instead of criticizing the police for excessive force, they commended their decisive actions and swift resolution. As for Xiaolon, he was completely overlooked by netizens, merely regarded as an unfortunate casualty in the arrest process, quickly forgotten. Meanwhile, within a speeding police vehicle, an elderly man clutched his phone, his lips pursed in indignation, as if he could hang a bottle of oil from them. You, ungrateful son, dare to threaten me with the revelation of my true identity to Xiaolon. The audacity. Do you not believe I could, in a heartbeat, forge a brotherhood with Xiaolon and recognize a foster father for you? Old Lu at the wheel nearly lost his grip on the steering wheel at such words. Good heavens, is that something he should hear? On the other end of the line, the old man and director and resumed their perennial argument. Father, please refrain from wandering about. Can't you simply stay at my home? I specifically purchased a property near the hospital for your convenience and retirement. The old man, stretching his neck, began to scold. What use is your house to me? You are so busy that you sleep at the office every day and have hardly returned. You are not married. And there isn't even a dog in the house, just an empty shell. What kind of home is that? The person on the other end seemed momentarily taken aback. After a few seconds of silence, he replied, but if you reside in the countryside, aren't you alone there as well? Living here. I could visit you once a week. Huh. The old man spat. Once a week? Do you take me for a prisoner? I live in the countryside, surrounded by beautiful mountains and rivers, with delightful food. Keep me in this wretched city? Only if what? The director seized the moment. Recognizing the old man's wavering stance, the old man's cloudy eyes darted around, glinting with determination. Only if you allow Xiaolon to move in and live with me. At that very moment, within the office of the East City Sub-Bureau's chief, director and helplessly supported his forehead with his hand, nearly singeing his hair with the spark from his fingertips. Listen to this. Can you believe what old Deng is suggesting? As a director, I toiled day and night, saving for a decade just to afford the down payment, and I am still repaying the mortgage. Yet, this old man expects my subordinate, fresh from graduation, to luxuriate in the house I just purchased for my father. Ah, splendid. Just cut 20 years off my journey, shall we? This grand house, which I have barely occupied, was specifically bought to honor my father. Is it reasonable to have Xiaolon move in? Does one truly wish for Xiaolon to become a godfather? Xiaolon. Xiaolon. It seems this name has resonated in Director N's ears more frequently in the past few days than over the entire last month. In Director N's recollection, since his transfer, this newcomer, Xiaolon, has demonstrated rather mediocre performance. It appears that his comprehensive evaluations have been consistently below average, bordering on disappointing. Why then has he recently garnered such attention? With his name frequently mentioned, it is rumored that this elderly gentleman is enamored with Xiaolan's pig trotters, irresistibly drawn by their fragrance to seek refuge at Xiaolan's residence. How shamelessly he acts, yet still possesses the awareness to conceal his true identity, sparing Director N from embarrassment in front of his subordinates. A flicker of paternal affection, albeit slight. Director N extinguished his cigarette and sighed. Father, you are in the car now, right? Once old Lu brings you over, we shall have a proper discussion. After hanging up, the old man chuckled to himself. You little rascal, Do you think you can outsmart your old man? As long as Xiaolan consents, I can persuade my son. The mere thought of Xiaolan potentially moving in and preparing pig trotters for him daily brought forth a sinister chuckle. Old Lu, observing through the rearview mirror, noticed the old man smiling foolishly, a trail of drool at the corner of his mouth, and felt a pang of unease. I hope there's nothing wrong with Xiaolan's pig trotters that has left him utterly daft. Simultaneously, unbeknownst to anyone, the regulars at the electronic park were in utter despair. A faint scent of pig trotters wafted through the air above the entire park. Those who failed to procure any during lunch lamented, slapping their thighs in regret. So close. Just a step away from tasting it. Meanwhile, those fortunate enough to have indulged wept after each bite. It's so delicious. What shall I do if I can never taste it again? In the first hour of Xiaolan's